Hey, it says we're now streaming live. So, yeah, there's going to be a bit of a delay, but we are streaming live. That means we are live from the Hill Country. Can we get a round of applause? There you go. Hit the likes and so all your favorite Chataria stars are here today, except for Susie G. She's not here, but she's here with us. Cheeky Monkey. You're all here with us in virtual spirit. So welcome to the show. And this is my favorite show that I get to do every year when we have this event, because I get to talk to people face to face, which is always a nice thing. I mean, I don't mind talking with people virtually because I do it basically for a living, but it's better. We get to hang out with each other and we get to like find out each other's stories. We've already had some great stories already, which we've been sharing here. So I would have to say that my initial characterization of this group is very unique. There are very unique people here today, and an interesting blend of, I would say, introversion and depth and extroversion. But let me ask you guys this question. Okay, do you identify more with being an introvert? Raise your hand. Let me see. Okay. All right. Do you identify more with being an extrovert? Raise your hand. Axel stands up. Okay. So in my head, I asked myself who the introverts and the extroverts would be, and I think I got most of it right. But so we tend to be a more introverted crowd, which is fine, because introversion is depth, and it is, introversion tends to breed a serious character, and people think about issues and emotions. And I think introverts make the best artists, by the way, because they're able to take in their idea of reality, whatever that is, and then process it at a deep level. And then extroverts, we get to talk about it, and we get to share it with people. So anyway, we're here, and of course, what I do is I bring people up. We're not gonna do that just yet. Let's see. Let's have some shout outs. I've been cutting back into shout outs. I've been more efficient with my love for you people. So we have JMP and Michael and Jimmers 333. And Axel is both here and here. All right, Glemma, we got to throw this up there. Day 8, no power. Wow. And she's still waiting on her 750.
Do they gotta have to pay taxes on that?
Yes, of course.
Motherfuckers.
No doubt.
Sorry.
That's an extrovert. Joan, by the way, Glemma, we're not making light of your situation. We hope you navigate it and do it as gracefully as you can. It's one of those things where if I spend a lot of time thinking about it, I get really pissed. So we're going to honor you folks down there, and we're going to hold the space and not go full rage. Let's see, Joan is here, Joan W. Nice light. Of course, DJ Pebblestone. You weren't first.
No.
Michael got you. Carolyn Wallace is here. Shelly Meyer. Susie G. I think her son's got a big football game tonight. So victory to whatever his team's name is. If not victory, make it a well-fought contest. Healing Heart Rosie, she cannot wait to see names and the faces. You get your opportunity. We miss you, Cheeky Monkey. We'll be seeing you again, though. Hey, Tom Jordan's here. How about that? Sandra D. Jill Wong checking in from Mexico. Hi, Jill. KK Smith, Amy, Laura E. Leanne Ott. Well, yeah, we wish you were here too. Leanne's just down the road. Kelly Boyles is here. Leanne was here last year, wasn't she? She was here last year. our guy Mark S. By the way, if you haven't seen Mark S.'s book, please check it out and even perhaps download it and purchase it. He's a working artist, and I'm just pitching the support Mark. So can we get a link for Mark's website? Can you find that, Tom? So we can put it in the chat box. Maybe you can do it, Tom, because you're a mod. Let's put Mark's link in the chat box. Brandy Herrera is here. I bet you Brandy's an extrovert. KK Smith, introvert. The great one. What are the odds? No election. Should I buy now? I think the odds we'll have an election. Whether it's determined who the winner is, that's a different story. Amy Gill, I'm an introvert, can play that extrovert role when needed. That's like a survival skill for introverts, isn't it? Like, learning how to be kind of extroverted, like you put a mask on. Yeah, I understand that. Now, Susie G is claiming she's an introvert. I'm not really buying it. I'm not buying what she's selling. Although she is a Gemini, so maybe she has an introverted side. Let's see.
Link for Mark S's website.
We got a CC Jones sighting. Hi, Fran. Katie Cat, definitely an introvert. Lynn, introvert. Is Lynn an introvert? I don't know. Lynn. Lynn, I'm going to veto that, Lynn. Let's see. Who else we have? No limits. It's Yacht Boy, Johnny, Mr. Cruz. And then we have the doppelganger Claire from Scotland. Hi, Claire. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Pamela Holda. Hi, Pamela. Let's see who else we have. Ms. Behaving 2's in the house. All right, we got Mark's website, cruelty-free cartoons. Please go there, check it out. Let's go here. Let me put it up here and share it. All right. Here we go. Videos home about Mark. And where's the book? Is there a link for the book here? I don't see a link for the book.
Yeah.
Okay, it's in there? Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Thank you. Nia the Wise, what's happening? Okay. We're getting some chat here. Did you guys get the goodies I sent? Yes, we did. I actually acknowledged that 2 broadcasts ago. Thank you for doing that, and we will break out your goodies on our barbecue. Looking forward to it. All right. I think they're tired of me. I think it's time for you guys to come up here and have a seat and meet the world. So I don't know. I think we should get this off to kind of a roaring start. What do you think? Yeah. Okay. Batting lead off today is Nora. Come on up here, Nora. Let's get the party started. All right. Okay. So here she is, the Queen of Speed, Nora. Yeah, so here you are.
Okay, so this is what I look at.
That's what you have. That's what you, well, yeah. And then, well, you don't look at that. You look
Okay, yes,
okay. So,
our doctor.
Nora, who are you? Who are you and where did you come from and how did you get here?
Oh my goodness.
Big questions,
That's a
right?
lot going on there.
Yeah.
Let's see, where do I start? born in Redding, California,
Yeah.
to Palestinian parents who came here, I think, in the late 60s. Spent a year in California, from what I know, and then they moved to New Mexico, got into the silver business, and grew up there in the Wild West, and literally grew up like in a soprano lifestyle.
Your father was an interesting character.
Mhm.
Are there any stories you can share about your father that won't land anyone in custody?
There is. Well, this was public news. So in 2000, January of 2000, he was kidnapped in a casino.
Right there in the casino.
Yep.
Which kid, like New Mexico,
Oh,
Vegas?
in Laguna, Acima. It's a little tribal area in New Mexico.
Okay.
And he was kidnapped by 6 or 7 gang members, I guess. Taken up to the mountains, beat up, pistol whipped, and then this is the Libra in him, he negotiated his way out of like a deathly situation, yep. Took him back to one of his silver stores and gave him $100,000 to let him go, but he led them into a bar that we also owned, and he took him back to the safe and started to give him the money, and then ran out, fled, and went into the bar where there was, the scene was happening. And then he told everybody, hey, I've been kidnapped. And so federal agents came. It was a crazy mess. But they never recovered the money, and the guys never went to prison for that. But I think it was a debt that was to be paid to my dad for something that had happened previously. So, yeah.
So he negotiated his way out of being, what, killed?
Almost killed. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what did the people from the bar go in and like confront these dudes, or?
Well, no, they called the cops,
Yeah.
and then held the bartender. Everything in New Mexico, by the way, everybody's got pistols, so that's just how I grew up. So the bartender had gone and kept 2 of the guys down where the safe was, and then they had maintained my dad and tried to, help him because he was beat up and almost dead at that point. But yeah, so we had federal agents following us at our house. It was kind of crazy. It was messy, but it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot about survival at that point.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
Not your average
Lifestyle.
growing up
No.
lifestyle experience.
No.
Right.
Yes, that's probably why. Always hightailing it.
Right. Somebody could be catching up on you, right?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
And
Well,
like Neil, I do have Pluto in the 7th house, so a lot of times it's kill or be killed, right? No, sorry.
no, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
So now, what your day job is?
Oh,
You work in the recreational
Yeah.
vehicle
Yes.
industry,
Yep.
and you've told me that people are buying RVs like crazy.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. In my industry, or in the RV industry, there is no signs of economic issues or problems at all.
And these are high-end RVs,
Yeah.
right?
$300,000, $400,000, $500,000 units. I mean, people come in, and a lot of them are cash buyers, even in the crisis that we're in. And I love it because every time Washington erupts or there's problems, we sell so many RVs. It's, people want to buy their RVs and escape, get the heck out of Dodge.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So crisis is a good time for you.
Yes.
Not for you personally, but the business.
But it seems like I attract crisis a lot.
Yeah.
Because I'm always, I think the astrology says that too.
Well, I mean, you're Pisces rising.
Mm-hmm. Pisces rising.
Okay, so and you're killing it in the RV world.
Yeah.
You had a very interesting upbringing.
Yep.
And we'll kind of leave it at that. And you're a huge
Oh.
sports fan too.
Yes, I'm a diehard sports fan. About upbringing, I was in an arranged marriage, interestingly enough, and then sent overseas.
Oh, that's right. You did tell me that.
Yeah, and escaped from my ex-husband with my 2 kids, and made it back here. So it's a lot of, I guess, high-intensity crisis situations. But
Now that's a very Pluto 7th house kind of thing.
yeah, oh
Right.
yeah, it was completely Pluto.
How old were you when that marriage was arranged?
I was married in, May 29th, I think 29th or 30th of 99.
She
So
was
that would put me at
26,
24, 25.
24,
I was born
25.
in 73.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then sent over to Syria, Damascus, Syria, where it was mostly Islamic led, but everybody lived there more free than they do in like California.
What was it like in Syria back then?
Americans, expats were treated like royalty. Like, I had a live-in maid, I'm driver, didn't do anything, but it was boring for someone, like completely boring. But learning about the culture and the traditions there is, it was hard. I didn't want my boys, because I've got 2 sons,
Yeah.
I didn't want them being raised or growing up like that at all. Because they do treat women like an object completely. But I did discover a lot of corruption. I'm getting in trouble. A lot of political corruption.
In Syria.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I could pay like a person, shake their hand with $5 or $10 and do whatever I needed to do.
Really?
Sir. I mean, I
That's
didn't
cheap.
do it all the time.
That's cheap corruption.
Yeah. But oh, yeah, there is corruption on
Much
larger levels. Yeah.
Right.
In fact, I was teaching English for the police academy there, the Syrian police academy. I was teaching those boys how to speak English.
Uh-huh.
And once they discovered that I had an American passport, a bunch of people, like soldiers, came. They escorted me out. And I thought it was an honor.
Really?
Yeah, sir.
I thought you were going to say as soon as they found out you had an American passport, you get a passport bro, right?
No,
And hit you up and
it was
American.
exact opposite.
Really?
Yeah.
Why did they do
feared
that?
me.
Why did they do
They
that?
thought I was a spy.
Really?
Yep. And then if they had known that I was Palestinian descent, I would have been in bigger trouble.
Really?
Yeah, because then for sure they would think I was a spy for the Israelis.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah. So it was kind of, I have Pluto square moon, so like all my
Oh,
life
that
has
the
been-
Pluto square moon is the extrication from your husband.
Yeah.
That's the underworld.
Yeah. So I faced a lot of that over there. Yeah, came back here, and right after the divorce for a bit, I stayed in Syria and then just escaped. And what I did do, though, is kind of cool, but all the husbands there hated me. A lot of the people, the women that I was friends with, they started divorcing their husbands like I did. Not kidding. So I started like this little trend in this area I was in, and so I was really hated a lot. Like,
So Pluto in the 7th house is viral.
yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, but here I am discovering astrology, liberating myself, and super excited to get to know you and all of us here in this community. I've grown a lot and
Well, we're
ready
glad
to
you're here.
conquer more.
We're glad you're here.
Sure.
Thank you for being
So
here.
that's me.
All right, let's get up for Nora. All right, wow. Who expected that, huh? Arranged marriage, spy in the house of love. Cool. Well, where do we go from there? Wow, it's like a kind of a breaking top. Yeah, why don't you come up here? All right, we got a rock star side. My guy Evan is back in the house, and it's good to have him here.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course.
So you have gone on a freaking ascent with astrology.
Yeah.
Right. So you really started to do this. Like you and I were hanging out, and I was doing readings with you, and like we were working through some stuff, and you started to do some TikTok videos.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, my Gen Z friend was like, you should try TikTok. I think this was the summer of 2021 or something.
Right.
Yeah. And I was like, I thought it was only dance videos. And like, I was like, how am I going to find an angle with astrology, talk about it? But then he was like, yeah, you can actually make content of, like, you can do whatever you want. So I just started. But before that, I got a reading from you, and I actually rewatched it the other, like a month ago or 2 months ago. And a lot of the stuff you said, like, I mean, pretty much all of it was like very, very prescient, because it was, you were telling me how like end of 2024, beginning of 2025, there would be some kind of like, it would be kind of this like before and after moment in my life. And then you said, that I'm supposed to be a teacher. And I think at that time I was, still very just like disillusioned by the job I had, which was, data analytics, which is interesting to a point for my Mars Gemini. Like I love just like working through numbers and like data. But I was like, but why am I, like, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing?
Right.
And through the first reading that I had with you, it was really validating, I was also asking you some like really like cringe questions, like, am I going to be famous?
What did I say?
Well, I think you were like, you're trying to placate me with that and be like, well, I think that, your midheaven in Pisces is, there's a lot of potential there, and like, but when I was watching it, I was like, yeah, I still had a lot I had to like let go of some stuff.
Yeah.
Like I seemed like really wound up. And I was like, it felt like I was coming into the reading like looking for a specific outcome.
Yeah.
And after the reading, and through the process of like studying astrology, I learned to kind of like let go of like results and just like focus on like what I want to say to whoever, right? And then that's when like I started making videos that actually I felt like were more powerful, because it's like there's no agenda.
Right.
And I felt like you helped me kind of like let go of so I think we all carry things from our childhood and like high school and whatever. I just had to like kind of like surrender to whatever happens.
Yeah, it was an interesting process with you. I think we might have done about 3 or 4 sessions.
Yeah.
And like the first sessions were more about kind of you and your life and what you were going through. And then as we went deeper into it, I could see you were turning a corner and you were becoming more interested in astrology.
Yeah.
And, some of the esoteric tools that are available. And so I was watching you kind of evolve through that process. So when you jumped in, I was not surprised at all when you jumped in. And then you started sharing these stories with me. I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, these are huge numbers.
Yeah. I mean, it's I think that astrology is still on the ascent. Like, I think that people are, just starting to grasp it, beyond the stereotypes, right? Like, we've all broken through the stereotypes. I'd imagine that's why we're here. Like, we know there's so much depth to it. And yeah, for me, like the whole years of 2020, 2020 and 2021, I felt like I just was like in some kind of like hyperdrive, like I was just like put into this machine going at whatever, like Mach 5, and like I was just trying to I had to let go in order to keep moving.
Yeah.
And basically just like completely upended my life, because and I think in mostly good ways, but like friends that I had before the pandemic, I like wasn't connecting with them as much because like they were not getting on the spiritual train. I was in a relationship that definitely disintegrated partly because of that schism. I felt like, the whole pandemic era, like it was a wedge, but it was like there were 2 different paths that we could take.
Right.
And I just decided to go all in on astrology. And then what I find to be really exciting for me as like a Mars Gemini again, is like, I love like making content every day.
Yeah.
And so it was like relentless, where it's like I'm always finding like different narratives, but a lot of my inspiration is you, and I really appreciate like the show that you do every morning. It's like my morning routine is essentially wake up, do the Wim Hof breath work, and then I start stretching, making breakfast, and your show's on.
There we go.
So your voice is always echoing through the house.
Breakfast of Champions. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So how does it feel being where you are now and having what I would say like really profound success in a very brief period of time? How does it feel and how do you process that?
Yeah, I would say like the first year or so, 2022 and part of 2023, it was like really, it was messy at times. Yeah. Because I was just like growing faster than the human mind can process. And then suddenly, because I still live in LA, for better or worse, and I'm like thinking of honestly like moving soon. But you go from just like making videos in your bedroom to like every time you go to the supermarket, someone recognizes you and wants to take a selfie with you. And like the human mind is not really equipped to make that transition, because like part of you like gets at first gets a rush from that, but then another part of you is like starting to realize, but they don't really know who I am. So right. Like, what is that really validating? And then there's another part of you that's like, oh, I'm actually. It just becomes like part of your daily rhythm of like, okay, you make a video and then it gets X amount of reach, and then you go and then you do readings, and then you're you have a process, and eventually you realize that you can't like be. Well, I don't think you can be in anything you can't do anything in life just for the validation of it, but especially spirituality, right?
Yeah.
Because I have met people in the spiritual community who are angling everything they do for just like their ego, their success, and like all of them have a downfall.
That's short term.
It's short term.
It's a very short term investment.
And I've met like TikTok astrologers, you know, who are like, again, like we're in a slightly different mindset because we do like make quick videos,
Right.
but I've met some who right away like just struck me as like charlatans, you know.
Yeah.
And I would have conversations with them, and they would try to like, you know, upsell me to do something that they're doing, and I'm like, I don't need your
So they're working at an
services.
angle.
Yeah, always working at an angle. And I could just kind of like tell in their energy that like something was a little off. And then like a month or two later, I'd hear about how like they're just, you know, they're just scamming people.
Fucking people.
Exactly. And then they disappear. So, you know, I have a Capricorn Saturn in the 7th house. So like, you know, I've never felt like, I've always felt like I have to be very regimented with my life.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I never think about, you know, I always assume that like I have to be like just like on the ball all the time.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually like really, like I've mostly hated my 7th house Saturn for most of my life, but you know, feeling judged throughout my life has actually weirdly helped in this situation.
Isn't that the highest planet in your chart too?
Yeah, well, pretty much. My Mars in Gemini is like in the 12th house.
No,
but, like
it's Saturn.
Yeah, yeah. So it's you know, it's definitely felt like to use a lyric from this band I love, Foals. It feels like a mountain at your gates.
Mhm.
To like have Saturn in the 7th house in Capricorn, especially, it feels like to start anything you're trying to prove yourself to some authority figure, you know, or to start a relationship. It's like a big hurdle. But I also feel like I've kind of molded myself through that, and now I'm like pretty confident once I have the I don't know how to say it. Well, once I have the expertise, it's like I feel like I can be a mentor for people, because I started doing readings full time like maybe a year after I opened an astrology book.
Right.
And it was partly because I just knew that I'd picked it up from past lives, and I knew that I had something to offer people at that time that was going to benefit them.
You know, it's really interesting. I was part of this conference. Was it last February? Not this last, but 2 Februarys ago in Vegas. When we were in Vegas 2 years ago, Vegas. And we were talking about the future of astrology. And I was talking about Gen Z in astrology.
Mm.
And there was this kind of ongoing narrative that real astrologers just can't pick up books and just start applying the principles or the aspects. But they actually have to live through something like a Saturn return. And I agree with that to some extent, actually a large extent. But I actually brought your name, or at least I referenced you. And I said, there are people who innately understand astrology. That was my experience when I first started doing it. It's like, I already know this.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of relearning it. And I thought, and I actually brought you up. Like, there are people who don't really have to go through that. It's helpful, clearly. And I think a lot of Gen Z is kind of wired that way. Like, they have an innate understanding of astrology. And they're the ones that are blowing up TikTok.
Oh yeah. Some of my friends who are primarily on TikTok, they're, you know, they haven't even like come close to their Saturn return yet. And I mean, yeah, I think that their Aquarius placements are definitely helping them convey concepts on social media in a really unique way that's
Right.
never been done before.
Right.
But I'm really glad that I had my Saturn return right before I learned astrology, because I think for like, I just, again, I feel like my Saturn in Capricorn makes me a little bit more of like a late bloomer with like finding my path.
Yeah.
Because, you know, obviously Saturn makes us wait. And in Capricorn, it's like waiting on like what you really are meant to do in like the public or in your career. And so, you know, my story was essentially, you know, I used to live in New York City working as, you know, a corporate schmuck, you know, digital strategy guy. And I got a concussion one night at this club called Pyramid Club with like the all-seeing eye. So like the symbolism is pretty obvious there. Like it was, oh, here's a pyramid right here. But the concussion just like was like happening right when the South Node was on my Neptune. So there was like a spiritual awakening, and then my Saturn return was pretty much exact at that time. so that was like a big slap in the face of like, you know, it was a call to kind of like ending my more like, I wouldn't say reckless, but just like my party days. Because in New York, that's just what you do. Like you go to work and then you go to happy hours, and then you stay out till 4 a.m. And like honestly, that was really fun. But like eventually, I realized that I was wasting time.
Right.
And Saturn Capricorn is like trying to be on the clock. Like you don't have infinite time. So through that transition, and then 3 months later, we had the lockdowns.
Right.
So 3 months after I started to already phase out of the party days, we have a lockdown, and then I'm like, okay, I need to do something else just to like, you know, reflect. And then that's when I found astrology. So anyways, like I feel like I learned a lot through that transition anyways. And then I also through my corporate experience, I was like, I feel like I know that I can't like cut corners. I have to do it the right way. But like you said, with spirituality, it's like, you know, there is like this intuitive feeling you have, like, you know, right away if you're like, if it's going to work out or if you're going to understand it. Just like as a musician, when I hear a song or when I started learning music, it was all very natural for me.
Right. Because
it's all like part of that. I don't know. It's just like part of your soul's like what it's yearning for.
Right. So Saturn in Capricorn is an interesting beast. Yeah. I have it in the second house. You should try it in the second house.
Oh, yeah.
Not a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But it is one of those things where if you wait long enough and you're able to endure whatever kind of tests or trials or perfection is really what you're doing, you're perfecting something with Saturn in Capricorn, that the rewards come eventually.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a quick question before you get out of here. As you were going through this process and you're in LA and people are recognizing you, like, did you have moments where you were struggling with your ego or your personality? Like, did you have to go through some of those things and have like a personality check or an ego check at any point in time?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there were many periods where, well, I mean, so with like TikTok was one thing because like TikTok is such a Wild West platform. It's like one of those places where you like someone could just like post a video about anything at any time, and at some point that video, it's like playing the lottery where there's like not as many people like competing. You can win the lottery on TikTok and just like randomly get views like on something. But then like in 2023, early 2023, I started to grow on Instagram really fast.
Yeah.
And I went from like, I don't know, 2,000 to 100,000 followers in like 3 months.
That's amazing.
So, and then now like 200,000. So it's like, it keeps going up, but it's like the first stage was like so fast that it just like opened a totally different, I don't know, like career path for me almost.
Yes. Yeah.
And then now I started to like kind of experience those like run-ins all the time where it's like, again, grocery stores, restaurants, anywhere. But eventually I had to see how I had to realize how that affects your like real life relationships, right? Whether it's like your friendships, romantic relationships, business partnerships, like really anything. And I had to have an honest conversation with myself last year, basically, because you know we saw these eclipses in Scorpio and Taurus, and like I'm a Scorpio stellium, so like the South Node in Scorpio was like really bringing out, it was bringing out like all of the insecurities of Scorpio and my Leo Jupiter, Leo South Node, of like realizing what the origins of that story is. Like, okay, like where and why do you feel like you need validation? And so I had to kind of like dig all the way into that and basically have, I don't know, I kind of went into like a hermit mode for a bit where I had to just like be with myself.
Like a come to Jesus with yourself.
Right. And then just realize like, okay, I can either attach to the egoic side of this and have a very short and sad career, or I can like completely sever that and focus on the mission,
right?
And also have fun,
right?
Because part of it too is like when you start to feel like you have more, then you have more to lose, and you become attached, kind of like you become attached to the results in a way where you start to like get tunnel vision about something, or you forfeit something else that matters.
Yeah, once you invest in something over and over and over again, it takes on a life of its own.
Yeah.
Right. It's a good thing you have Mars and Gemini. So you can keep up with that content.
Right, and Mercury and Sag. Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel like I went through that transformation. Like I don't feel I personally, yeah, I don't feel vulnerable at this point to anything that could happen. Like even if, like I always say this. I'm like, even if I don't know someone was like, hey Evan, like you should try acting or something, and like, we'll just put you in this Hollywood film that's like with all these A-listers right now. Like I really don't believe that like anything even at that scale would like make me think that suddenly I don't have to be Evan anymore, because it's like I accept who I am. I accept myself. I don't want anyone to. I don't feel like anyone has to like change me. I don't feel like anyone has to tell me that. Oh no, I'm actually good at X, Y, Z. It's like I feel pretty self-contained at this point. So yeah, I feel like I came through that, but it definitely. I'm not even being dramatic, because like I know people who in LA especially who have gone through that like sort of rocket ship phase, and it's a real test.
It's a real test, man.
Yeah.
And I can see that in your chart, because you had so much magic and potential with all the Scorpio stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think he's going to go through a test for Opus.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. And that first reading, the prestige, which I talk about a lot to people. Like you literally brought up how my chart reminds you of the movie The Prestige about the magicians, and I wrote that in my journal like 2 days before you did the reading. So that's also when I mean, obviously you're Scorpio rising, so you have the psychic ability, but that was also like so. Yeah,
that was a click moment.
Yeah.
Like we had a click moment with
that.
Yeah.
Like I've never. I don't get readings from other astrologers, but like that, like already just like set the standard for me. I was like, okay, like I'm good. Got a reading from Robert. So. Yeah.
Well, man, thank you so much for being here on Sunday Levels. He feels like my son. All right, man, that's hard to top. Now, where do we go from there? How about Tom? Come on, Tom. Come on, Tom. Leave the shades on. Leave the shades on. Leave them on. It's a good look. So we went from Scorpio to Mr. Capricornius. How you doing, man?
Doing good, Rob.
You're looking good. Look at you. You got a new shirt. You got your shades.
Yeah, Texas it's been an experience.
So for those of you who are not aware, Tom moved here in June, right? June you moved here. Is that right?
June 4th.
June 4th. And Tom has been living with me and my two cats since then. And it's been a very look, I love that you're there, and I appreciate you. I really do. And I appreciate everything you do in this world as well. So I just want to get that up front.
No, thanks.
Yeah, because you're a good dude, and you had a lot to this experience. So, but what's it like being here?
Well, here in general, right now, it feels really, really good. It's a small, intimate group, and definitely probably more of a chance to get to know everybody. Year number 4 for me. Robert made it real easy last year for me to get here, and this year it was even easier because I'm only 5 miles, 5 minutes, 5 minutes down the road. Yeah, it's been the last 4 months. It's real 180 degrees from where I was, because I was really living by myself and not having much of interaction with people.
Right. And now you interact with me a lot.
Yeah.
What's that like, Tom?
Kind of know when to approach you with something and when not to.
I mean, besides that, though, I'm like, am I kind of a fun guy to hang out with sometimes?
Oh yeah, Rob's loosening me up a lot.
That's the language I want to hear. Yeah. Look at him. He looks pretty loose, doesn't he? I never noticed Tom had this much chest hair either. Like that's a forest. That's like the Amazon right there. It's good though. It's a good look.
I was used to living the life of an ascetic.
Right.
Before I came here, and
I'm corrupting you.
Yeah, he is. I can't match him food-wise, though. I put on a lot of weight, and I gotta cut back on my caloric intake.
Yeah, Tom's gone off the path. Tom got here. He was what was it, 1 meal a day or something.
Yeah, intermittent fasting.
And I introduced him to Mexican food.
Yeah.
And now it's a marriage made in heaven. Maybe not.
Well, a couple things. Lynn down in Panama, she sent these seeds. I want to make sure she gets acknowledged for this because she wanted everybody to have this these seeds that come from a plant that the Kalanchoe plant. It's called the Mother of Thousands, and it has a lot of healing qualities. So thank you, Lynn. I'll make sure everybody gets the seeds. And she also sent some coffee, but you're going to have to come to the barbecue if you want some Panama coffee.
That's right. Yeah.
So shout out to a lot of people that couldn't get here this year. It's unfortunate, but we miss you. You know who you are.
Yeah. Well, Tom, thank you for being here on so many levels. I really appreciate you. And I know a lot of other people do as well. Yeah. And
Robert's changed my life. So I don't mind saying that. COVID, if I hadn't found Robert, I don't know if I would have made it.
I think now you've probably found too much, Robert. That's a different story. Thank you. Love you. See you. Who should we talk to next? Isn't this great? Huh? So good. Okay, so we got this guy who I think secretly works for the NSA, who's with us. I think we should bring him up here. Neil. Come on, Neil. My color is long. That's right. I was telling Joan, I said, have you checked this guy Neil out? I think he works for the NSA, and he's infiltrated our group. But truly, if you were really that, you wouldn't be this. You would be lost for yours. Have you ever spotted a Fed? Have you ever spotted, like, they stand out like a sore thumb? Right. So how are you, Neil? And who are you, Neil?
Well, by the way, I don't do this sort of thing.
Okay, well, now you do.
Well, you asked me how I got here.
Yeah.
I wrote on my own coattails.
Okay.
But no, it was a sort of an intuitive thing.
Yeah.
I through a series of coincidences, found out about your show. And I'm a big fan of high quality podcasting.
Yeah.
And I'll drop a plug in shamelessly for the No Agenda show.
No agenda. Okay.
Because it's very much like this. It's a community. And
Who runs that podcast?
Adam Curry and John Dvorak.
Oh, yeah. Adam
They're the
Curry.
inventors of the podcast.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And they do meetups, and this is sort of like a
I think
meetup.
Adam Curry lives in Fredericksburg.
Yeah, and actually, I'm going to put a plug in. I'm here as an agent, field agent for No Agenda,
Yeah. Right.
because I think you should become the official astrologer.
I'd be into it.
Because a lot of what they do is very much like what you're doing.
Yeah.
Kind of deconstructing the news and what's going on, and
Yeah.
teaching people how to not be hypnotized
That's it.
and
Yeah.
how to have fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's an important equation.
yeah.
So you shared a story with us earlier on about the guy walking down the road. I'd love for you to share that with the people here, because that was such a compelling image.
Yeah, I'm driving maybe 50 miles south of Poplar Bluff. I think that's in Arkansas. A couple mornings ago, and it was a beautiful sunrise morning going through the country. And I see this gentleman on the side of the road. He looked Aboriginal in that he wasn't a European. He could have been it could have been my imagination. But anyway, he was not wearing any shirt. He had shorts on. He wasn't wearing shoes. He had a long gray kind of mottled hair down.
And
his
no
back.
backpack. No backpack.
No, nothing. Just walking down the road with his back, walking. He wasn't hitchhiking, and his head was down, and his head was in his hands, and he was just walking, like he was crying or something. And I just thought, this is odd.
Yeah.
And I've become sort of experienced at observing odd occurrences.
Yeah.
Especially in my own story.
And you're an Aquarius rising, that happens.
Right. So I've gotten to the point where I just like, well, what does this mean? I'm walking along, and as I shared with the group, it seemed to me that it was a message about our country.
Right.
And people aren't really sure where they're going.
Right.
And a lot of them don't have enough to wear, and they're kind of spending time outside. You know, there's a lot of people on the street.
There are.
And I didn't really know what to do. I mean, I thought, well, should I stop? Should I ask if he's okay? But it seemed like he was comfortable being outside, so I just kept going.
Right. So when you referenced Arkansas, that's a very heavy tribal area, Native American. So you were probably coming across an elder Native American
It could be.
guy. Yeah. And but fairly unusual though to be walking barefoot, no shirt. So was he walking on the pavement or the side of the road?
He was on the side of the road,
Yeah.
and there's stones and everything.
So it's still not going to be easy on the feet, right?
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's really an alarming symbol in a lot of ways. But the perseverance, though, is also interesting too, right?
Yeah.
Because he keeps going, kept
Yeah.
walking. Well, Neil, I'm glad you're here, and I know I put you on the spot a little bit, but thank you for being up here and sharing a little bit of yourself and your story. And I'm looking forward to hanging out with you the rest of the weekend.
And let's note for the record, this is the first time I've ever appeared on a show. I've had podcasters ask me to go on their show, and I said, I don't do it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you came on this show.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Neil.
Glad to be
Give
here.
me a handshake, brother. Take care. Okay. I think Neil just tried to give me a Masonic handshake. That was kind of weird. No, I'm just kidding. Anybody ever happened? Has that ever happened to anybody? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? What do? They extend their finger, don't they? Yeah. Yeah. I've had it happen at least 3 times. It's kind of awkward because if you don't do it, you're like, oh man, am I letting this guy down? But it also feels like slightly invasive, like, you know, like let me diddle you, you know? All right. I'm sorry. It's an adult crowd. Come on. Yeah, come on up. Yeah, why not? We're on a roll. Okay, so this is Axel, the history kid. And every time I see you, you get bigger, right? So how tall are you now?
Like 5'5" or like 5'6" or something.
Yeah, and how much do you weigh?
Oh, I don't want to talk about
Yeah,
that.
come on. You gotta own it, brother.
Probably. I'm a big boy, so like 160.
160.
Pretty big.
Do you ever like walk around and you say, man, I'm a big dude? Like, do you ever have that feeling of like, you know, being able to kind of get into your mass? Like, yeah, you know, kind of like this, or are you still adjusting to what it's like?
I've been like this all my life, and my whole life I thought it was just average to be like much taller. I was like, my hands are huge, and I always thought that. And then my friends are just like so small compared to me.
So they literally look up to you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what is new in your life? You just went through an experience with football, Texas football,
Yeah.
and it wasn't ideal. And
No.
so, yeah, so you said, okay, I'm on to something else. What's the new thing?
Gosh, well, I'm kind of getting into like lifting. My dad and I are getting into like weightlifting, and you know, I have like Viking descent, so when the weight he calls me like Viking Axel.
Viking Axel, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, was it like 13 or 14 is the age limit for steroids in Texas? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just messing.
I'm a natural.
You're natural. I like that. Do you do protein shakes?
Yeah, and I drink like a lot of caffeine.
A lot of caffeine. Uh-oh, Mom. Uh-oh, Mom.
One coffee.
One coffee and one energy. How do you take your coffee? So
I like it iced.
Iced coffee. You like black, you like a little cream in there.
Oh, I go crazy with the cream.
Crazy
Did
with the
not
cream.
want to know how much cream for the coffee.
Okay.
But I like natural cream, not just like coffee made cream. I need natural, real cream,
Real cream.
no artificial
He's Axel the Natural Kid as well.
stuff. Yeah, you see.
So I remember when I first met you, you told me, like, how old were you? Like 9? Maybe not. Was he 9 when I first met him? Yeah. And he said, well, I said, like, do you ever listen to jazz? I said, oh, yeah, I had a jazz phase.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, he's like 9 years old. 3, you had a jazz phase.
3, yeah. So basically, I got really into Dizzy Gillespie, right? And he had this crazy trumpet. And I'm pretty sure the story was like this kid, he was playing his trumpet, right? And then this kid riding a bike, he crashes and the bell trumpet just cranks up. And I got really into that. Like, oh, that, like, it really intrigued me. So I kind of got into jazz. I'd listen to jazz all the time. I'd listen to like jazz documentaries, jazz records. So.
Have you ever seen him play?
Dizzy Gillespie?
Yeah.
Oh no, he was kind of fun.
No, I mean like on video.
Oh, man. Oh yeah.
And his cheeks go way out there like a
Oh
bullfrog.
yeah, it was like he had 4 sets of cheeks. It was like a burger bun bag. It was insane.
And he does everything that you're not supposed to do when you play a trumpet.
Yeah.
Right? You're supposed to hold the cheeks in, right? But he's able to like fill those things and blow it out like an accordion. Right?
Yeah, it's insane. And I also listen to like John Faddis, Arturo Sandoval, Wynton Marsalis. Yeah, I listen to.
I have a YouTube channel for you.
Oh, what?
Andy Edwards.
Andy Edwards.
You have to watch Andy Edwards. He's a drummer. He's a progressive rock and jazz drummer, but he's more than that. You will love Andy Edwards.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so what don't you do?
What don't I do?
Yeah. Like we got weightlifting, we got little jazz.
What don't I do?
Yeah.
Well,
That was actually rhetorical. You don't have to answer that.
what don't I do? I don't take vaccines. I don't wear masks. I don't do anything.
Yeah. So when I first met you, after you left, I was talking to Joan. I said, "What'd you think of Axel?" And Joan said, "You mean your mini me?" Did you ever make a connection between me and him? Like I was him at 9. That was me. That was me. It was like I was like, who is this guy? All right. Do you want to put a plug in for your YouTube channel or?
Oh yeah, well, I post on TikTok. I make my channel name is Timothy on TikTok, and then on YouTube it's Axel The History Kid. I also post like NFL edits. If you're into football, I am a huge football fan. You know, I used to hate football with all my heart, but now I love it. It's the exact opposite.
We should get him on Serious Sports one of these days. You would be great. We'll get you on as a guest.
Yeah, totally.
How's that sound?
Awesome. Yeah, but one thing that one of Robert's main flaws is that he's a San Francisco 49er.
Oh, come on. It's not a flaw. It's a curse. It is a curse. There is actually a curse of the 49ers. I've talked about it before, but I can't do it now because you're too young.
They lose to the Chiefs every time in the Super Bowl.
But they do beat the Cowboys.
Yeah, they do, but the Chiefs are.
This Chiefs thing, I got to say, you're a little bit of a front runner. You're a little bit of a front runner with the Chiefs. Because what's going to happen if they start losing?
I don't know what universe you're in.
No, they could start losing. They could start losing. What would happen then? Would you stay with your team through let's say Patrick Mahomes has a knee injury. He's out of season, maybe 2. Would you stay with your team through thick and thin? If they didn't win.
Let's see what Carson Wentz can do.
Carson Wentz. We know what Carson Wentz can do.
No.
Well, he was good. But if you're looking at Carson Wentz to save your season, it might be a long season. Axel, you're awesome. Thank you for being here. As you can tell, Axel's an introvert. All right. Why don't we bring up Mario? Mario, you want to come up here? Come on up here. All right. We got our guy, Mario, Mr. Mario from Symbolic Studies, and a newlywed. Come on. One more time. Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
So how long were you in relationship before you decided to go all in here?
11 years.
11 years.
Yeah. So a little while.
Okay, what was the motivating factor to say, okay, let's do this?
Honestly, I wanted the families to meet. That was really important for me. So I wanted my family to meet her family. My family is in California. Her family's in Wisconsin. I knew that, obviously our folks are getting older. While they can still travel, I wanted them to kind of.
It's a very Cancerian thing to do.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So you were thinking of the family and the tribe.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, man.
Definitely. And so it came about pretty naturally. I mean, I think I wanted to propose, for years, and I held off for various reasons. But at some point, I felt myself wanting to propose spontaneously, actually, just while on a hike or out somewhere.
So it was like a series of urges that were starting to come up?
Yeah.
Did you have to fight them back every now and then?
Occasionally a little bit. But I let it come out.
You did?
And I wasn't planning on it. I just did it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously you were probably even surprised when you said it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And was she surprised?
She was surprised. She was very happy.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a mountain that we live really close to, and we've developed a relationship with this mountain.
Yeah.
And there's this beautiful ledge. It's within walking distance of our place. And so we hiked up there. We were just hanging out, and I'm like, this is totally the time.
Good.
Yeah.
Cool. So I heard you had a Bigfoot sighting at your wedding.
That's right. I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our little community in Southern Washington, Bigfoot is kind of like a thing there. So you'll see several Bigfoot statues in the town. There's a coffee shop called Bigfoot Coffee. And I thought it would be fun to have somebody come as Bigfoot. And that coffee shop, the woman actually wears a Bigfoot costume to bring people into the shop. And we asked her if we could borrow it. She said no, but she said, I'll give you the phone number of the woman who made my costume. She's all about it. And we contacted her, and she was down, and she was very enthusiastic. She came bearing Bigfoot gifts and stuff, like dolls and T-shirts and hoodies and things like that.
That is so cool.
We had a sign that said, I met Bigfoot at Mario Michelle's wedding.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it was fun.
Have you ever seen Bigfoot, like real Bigfoot?
No, I had night vision for like 10 years for sky watching purposes.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of stuff. I have a buddy who's really into Bigfoot. His whole family, actually, they're really into it. And we did go out one night with the night vision, and he's a very outdoorsy, woodsy sort of guy.
Yeah.
And he was calling Bigfoot, and I could only hang for like 2 or 3 minutes out there. I got pretty spooked. And so
Really?
we're like, let's just.
How does he
get
call
out.
for Bigfoot? Could you sort of approximate that?
He has some like yelps and calls, but then he also like clanks, like I think it was either rocks or pieces of wood or whatever. Yeah.
That's like an interesting obsession.
Yeah, the whole family is really, really into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they even have like a Bigfoot, like a cast of like the foot
The foot.
of I don't know where they got it from, but they somehow have that in their living room.
Right.
And I know a handful of like hardcore Bigfoot people, but I personally have never seen anything.
So I had a guest on my show. I think it was around 2013. Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay. I had a guest on my show in 2013. This guy was dead serious, and that he had developed an intimate relationship with a female Bigfoot.
Oh.
No, that's the other show. That's the dolphin show. No, a female Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently it was on Chuck Norris's property.
Oh.
Big sprawling outside of here. So he went into great length and detail about his relationship with this female Bigfoot.
Wow.
So it wasn't just like platonic, like they were an item.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What's that? I don't know if there's little Bigfoots, but yeah. All right. So you're going to be talking tomorrow,
Yes.
and I threw this thing out because we were in equinox territory,
Mhm.
and we're in Libra. We just came out of the eclipse.
Mhm.
And so I just threw out this topic, journey to Venus, Libra, and then you're going in what direction?
Well, before I get into that, I just have to say, each sign for me personally, I feel like I have a different relationship with each sign, and some signs have really come online sooner than others.
Yeah.
And I have like an in-depth relationship with some of the signs symbolically. But Libra really was one of the signs that took me a while to fully wrap my head around it.
It's not an easy sign
No, it's not.
to understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that coupled with the fact, for some reason, every Libra season, I am incredibly busy. I've just noticed that over the last like 4 or 5 years, where I'm just balls to the wall with like work and just everything. This season is like no different, actually. It might even be the busiest one
Right. Yeah.
since I've been paying attention. So Libra took a while for it to really kind of crystallize. And last year, it came through very, very strongly for me.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind, and I'll say it's still blowing my mind. And so I feel like I'm still chewing on, just what's there symbolically with the history and with what the scales, as simple as they are, how deep they really
They're very
are.
deep. Yeah.
Yeah, incredibly deep. So I want to talk about the journey to the underworld, the afterlife journey, what the scales mean, and how it's kind of been viewed throughout history. Some other constellations that also relate to Libra and scale symbolism outside of even just the Libra constellation.
Right.
And so I want to talk about all of that stuff. Saturn being exalted
In Libra. Right.
So that's a huge weave that I want to parse out. Venus and the Venusian sort of relationship with the afterlife, the pentagram, how it relates to the number 5. The number 5 as it relates to Libra as well. There's all sorts of things I really want to get into. It's going to be very visual, so I'll have a lot.
Love it. Right. Your work is exquisite.
Awesome.
I always love it when you drop something on Twitter
Mm-hmm.
and you're going through progression of the whatever topic it's about and the symbols that are related to that. It's all really high art and beautiful. So the minute you pop that on Twitter, like I repost it immediately.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it's really great work. Let me ask you this question about Venus, because this is one of the things that's always intrigued me. We live in a very Mars-centric culture in a lot of ways,
Mm-hmm.
right? Elon Musk wants to go to Mars.
Mm-hmm.
Mars always plays this like big role, in our consciousness.
Yes.
Right.
Sure.
Like we're going to Mars. Nobody really talks about Venus.
Right.
Right. It's not like, hey, let's go to Venus. And like I've always found it to be really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Just real quick, like, what is your immediate take on that?
Well, I mean, to me, it fits right in line with masculine and feminine symbolism.
Yeah.
The masculine being more projective and out there, the feminine being more passive behind the scenes. Reminds me kind of like the king as well, and the patriarchy. But behind every great man is a great woman. So there are queens who are really in true control, have been, but they are more behind the scenes, right? Yeah. So they're behind the veil a little bit.
Right.
So I see that as being the case with like the sun and the moon as an example,
Sure.
right? And so I see that kind of just the same sort of play with that. Mars being very much out there. You got the ram and its powerful horns and,
Right.
being related to Aries and things like that. So yeah, just kind of more out there versus behind the veil.
Did you ever, have you ever seen Easy Rider?
Yeah.
Do you remember the scene where they're sitting around the campfire and Jack Nicholson is talking about that the aliens are already here and that they're amongst us? Have you?
I don't remember that. I have seen it though.
He says they're from Venus.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, they're from Venus. They're already here.
Yeah.
They walk amongst us.
Have you come across the work of Ola Wolny and her information about Venus?
A little bit, yeah.
It's pretty fascinating. She's been on Aeon Byte and she's been on other shows, but she has some really intriguing things to say about Venus. So long story short, people should really look up her work, but she thinks a lot of symbolism that was once associated with Venus later on got transferred over to the moon.
So this is an interesting topic.
Yeah.
right? Because I've always felt like that Venus and the moon in some ways are in competition with one
Mm-hmm.
in the zodiac, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, well, do we really need the moon? Right? Like I've had that thought because there's a lot of overlap between the two, right? And you and I we went into a pretty interesting conversation
Right.
about
Exactly.
Saturn and the moon.
Right.
And my theory is like, it's not in my theory. If you go back far enough, people don't talk.
Yes. Right.
There is literature literally where they talk about the sky and the moon is absent. And that lends a lot of people to think, well, maybe it's a new arrival.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And as a new arrival, it becomes a rival with Venus. as a
Right.
result of that.
Yeah, 100%. So part of my work that I'm like endlessly fascinated with is symbolic transference.
Yeah.
And so constellations that have an origin story,
Yeah.
like where did the symbolism come from? And so I'm going to be talking about that with Libra. Like where does perhaps a lot of the genesis of a lot of Libra symbolism come from?
Yeah.
And so I'll save that for the presentation, but it's going to be a fun ride.
Yeah, so if you guys want to watch Mario do his thing, you can still get tickets virtually for tomorrow's event. It's on my Twitter page, and maybe Tom, did you have the link that you could put in chat, Tom, for that? Okay, thanks. Really glad you're here.
Yeah, me too, man.
Thank you so much.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, how are we doing on time? Let's see, so we're into 2 hours, aren't we?
Yeah.
We got 131 people here. I bet a ticket to Venus is too expensive. With her being bougie and all. It's funny. All right, so we started at 11. No, 12, right, okay. Where's Saturn when I need it? All right. Let me do this. Does anybody want to come up? Raise your hand. Let's see that. All right, come on up, Jay. Here we go. What? Kristen? Kristen. Platinum happiness is here.
Platinum happiness is here.
And look, we're matchy. Look at that.
Fall festival.
You know,
Harvest festival.
I wasn't going to wear this today. I changed my shirt, didn't I, Joan? Yeah.
It's all about the harvest festival and the harvest moon.
And so I can't wear clothes if I'm not feeling comfortable.
Exactly.
You feel that way?
Exactly. Same way.
So you put that on this morning, you're like, I'm feeling good.
I'm feeling good.
Okay, you're looking good.
Okay.
All right. So let's tell us a little about yourself.
Well, to start off, I'm an outliner. I'm like nobody else in my crowd of people.
That's good.
I had a lot of struggles early on in my life.
Yeah.
I'm neurodivergent.
Yeah.
ADHD, probably a little bit of autism stuck in there.
Can you explain to people what neurodivergent means?
That means that generally you have ADHD, you can have a little autism, you know, you're just not quite right like the rest of the crowd.
Right.
You know, your attention span might be a little bit different. You get hyper focused. Like when I was a child, I was beyond focused on horses. From the time I was 4 to 8, well, probably 10, all I could think about and talk about was horses. And that's actually how I learned to read, was by horse magazines.
Yeah.
I had magazines about horses and I learned to read from the horses. I had no communication skills with other kids. I had no friends. I was bullied.
You were bullied.
Oh yeah, I was bullied bad because I was such a horse girl. I would tell people at night I turned into a horse and galloped around in a hay. I was obsessed with horses. I was super hyper fixed on horses.
Now that is not uncommon for girls.
No, but I was
But you were
beyond,
like way
beyond. It was beyond what normal people would
Right,
have. Yeah. Luckily, I was able to I had a job when I was about 9 years old. I would clean stalls so I could ride a horse.
Right.
So that was really good. Around 12, something happened. My hormones started changing. We moved away. I couldn't be with the horses anymore. And I went completely the opposite way. I have zero communication skills. I did not know how to advocate for myself. I didn't know how to have friends. And back then I was a pretty girl.
You're still, hold on a second, you're still an attractive woman.
Well, thank you.
I'm not just saying it,
Thank
right?
you. So I went completely the opposite end. I got into boys and, partying. I never went to school. I ditched school all the time.
You were a problem child.
I was a problem child. All through high school, I had difficulty. I don't know how I passed. I don't know how I graduated, but I did. Early in my adulthood, I met somebody that kind of put me on a better path and says, hey, you know what? You have something going on. You're not, because I was always told I wasn't good enough. You're not good enough. You're stupid. You're not smart. Blah, blah, blah. Because I had ADHD issues. I had learning developmental issues. So I went to school. I went to Cal State Bakersfield and got a nursing degree and started nursing and then continued nursing for a few years. Went back and got a master's in science in nursing. Then went to Duke University and got a PhD in nursing.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that is so cool.
And it's been a struggle, but I have embraced the struggle. I was always an unhappy person, never happy, never satisfied, never thought I was free. Something just happened to me where in the last few years, actually, where it's like, no, you are good enough. You have a blessed life. Your life, everything that's happened to you in your life is added to this. This is why you're successful today. What happened when you were 7 is why you're successful today.
Right, absolutely.
So I'm a big advocate for students. I'm an actual professor, and I actually I'm writing a book that Elsevier is my editor. It'll be out in about 6 months. I have developed a wellness class for student nurses. It's called Wellness, or Common Sense Wellness and Emotional Healing. And we're not talking about the wellness of, eat healthy, exercise. What I'm having them do is I have them deep dive into their emotions and really see what's stopping them from being happy or being successful. Because we all have these set of emotions. And if you can't get out of that framework of that repeat mindset, our brain's constantly rewinding our memories every day, and we live the same way every day.
Yeah.
Unless you can cognitively stop that thought process, you're going to have the same thoughts and the same outcomes.
So have you developed techniques for this?
Oh yeah. I have different techniques, just common sense, a lot of cognitive behavioral therapies I put in that. And what that is positive language just with yourself.
Right.
Never talk bad about yourself.
Yeah.
Your opinion is more important than anybody else's opinion. Whatever you say to yourself, that will be the outcome.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm trying to teach these students, a lot of Gen Zs, who are fabulous. I have hope for
I'm a big Gen Z fan.
Yes.
I'm on the record for a long time, and I push back on, the nuttiness, the eccentricity, or whatever. I think one of the challenges that Gen Z does have is in the workplace.
Yeah. Yes, they're different. They don't put up with the BS. They're not, I'm going to sit here all day doing stuff. They want it done fast. They want to know now, not tomorrow. Yeah. So I work with them, and I just work on that back. Everybody has baggage. I don't care who you are, how great your life was. You have baggage, you have guilt, you have shame. And we really deep dive into that. And they find ways to bring it out, and you confront it and you change it, And then another thing, this is kind of going backwards, but I grew up in California, Southern Cal, and that's why I like the way you speak, because I understand it's kind of Cal talking. And then I moved to Oregon for 10 years, and I was on the school board with the COVID policies, right, when it first happened. Right at the beginning, I said, oh gosh, we're in trouble. There's something going on. This is not right. Something's wrong with COVID. When they started talking about mandates and masking and vaccination, it's like, no, this is not proven science. This vaccine has no trials, blah, blah. The rats all died. And basically, I got kicked out of it pretty high. I was chased out of it, basically. They wanted to, with the vaccine. I said, no.
And you needed to be on team vaccine.
Yeah, and I was told I need to go to a mental hospital. They think I'm crazy. I've lost all my friends. I went through a really deep time.
And now, this is probably triggering all that stuff that you had gone through before, right? Like, here it is, right in your face.
Yep. So what I did is, I saw I can't live here and work. There's no way. I'm out. I'm gone. People think I'm crazy. The bullet was, though, I went to my office and they had a special mask for me, since I was such a horrible person. And it was so horrible. It was in 95, but it was made out of this material that caused me to actually have a staph infection all over my mouth. And I got super, I mean, it was, I said, this is it. I'm done. I have about a year's worth of sick time because I never took time off. You know, I'm moving. So I moved to Idaho, where I knew I could get away without having the vaccine.
Right.
I still had to kind of, you know,
Had to finesse certain things.
because I'm at university. And even though it's Idaho, I'm not like all the other university people. I'm like the outliner. You know, I'm the person that I'm not listening to the, I hear them talking, oh, we got to get all these students vaccinated, blah, 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 blah. That person doesn't want to get vaccinated. You know, I'm like, well, that's their right. You know, let them have their rights. So I'm completely, I'm not ostracized. You know, I do have a few people that are like me, but I know where I live, people will support me in Idaho, not Boise area. I live in eastern Idaho, which is Boise's California. So that's just what it is. But eastern Idaho, a very large Mormon community, which I'm not, which is okay. You know, I am, like I said, the outsider. You know, people are nice to me, but they don't bring you in. But
So you haven't had a Mormon guy say, hey, you want to be one of my wives?
not yet. But we do have some fundamentalists. I've seen the fundamentalist wives around town, and they have a certain look. If you know exactly what I'm talking, but they're extremely nice people. I trust them. You know, they're hardworking.
Right.
I have nothing against them. They're fabulous people. I'm just so thankful and grateful to be here. Every day I wake up, and you know, thank you for everything.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. Yeah, thank you. That's an amazing story. A couple questions, please. So I have a California accent.
You do, yeah. I know. Yeah, I like it. It's just the way you emphasize things. It's California. I love it. Yeah.
Cool. Good.
Cool. See it right there.
Right. How did you find me?
It was just a fluke. You know, I'm just like I just started looking at YouTube probably maybe 5 years ago, and I was following Conscious of Science for quite a while. You know, Matt Henry.
I don't know Matt.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody knows him. Conscious of Science. So I watched him for a while.
You mean quantum of consciousness?
Yeah, quantum of.
Of course I know.
Yeah. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
He's
very smart, very funny.
He's very funny and he's very introverted. I always try to get him to go do a live. Anyways, so I was following him, and then one day I was just, who can I? Everybody's COVID, this and that. And I finally found your website or your stream or YouTube about 2.5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and I saw your Harvest Moon or Harvest Festival like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, that looks like so much fun. Then last year you were doing the eclipse. It's like, oh, I want to go so bad, but I couldn't.
Right.
Because I didn't have. I just started my new ISU or my university job, so I couldn't go. But I said, you know what? Next year, I don't care what, I'm going to that Harvest Festival because those people are like me. I know those people have.
We're all outliers.
Yeah, we're all exactly.
Yeah.
We're not like the normal population.
Right.
And I don't have friends I can talk like this to.
Right.
I wouldn't tell my friends everything I just said now.
Yeah.
Because they think I'm cuckoo. But that's why I'm here. And this is another interesting thing. I was here for a conference in Austin for the other eclipse in April.
Right.
I actually came to Creeville to interview at a university here.
Oh, Shire University.
Yeah, which is interesting. So I was like, wow, this is a small world. So I'm here again. But yeah, I'm just beyond excited to be here. And the people I've met so far have just been beyond expectations.
They're the best, aren't they?
You know what? They are. This is like the best group of people I've ever met. Seriously. Yeah. I feel like we're like a family. Like, I mean, you know how they say family's more than blood. You choose your family. So that's what it's like.
It's cool, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for being here and making the journey.
Thank you.
Wow, what a cool story, huh? That's a very cool story. Well, let's see. Who else should we bring up here? Well, I was thinking either Chris or Andrea. Why don't you come up here, Andrea? We'll limit it to Chris. Come on, Andrea. Okay, so we've got Axel's mom here.
Hello.
Okay, so I call you Andrea. Is that good? Or is that
It's actually not.
Okay.
It's Andrea.
Andrea. Okay.
Because 90210, Andrea was such a snoot. And like, you can say Andrea or Andrea, but try not. I mean, I love you, so if you call me Andrea, it's okay. But
So who played Andrea on 90210?
what was the lady's name? I waited on her. I used to work at this eclectic Zen Grill in Sherman Oaks, and
It wasn't Shannon Doherty.
no, it wasn't Shannon Doherty. She was older than all the other actresses. I can't think of her name.
Was it
She
Dee
was-
Rogers?
No, she was very nice, but the character
You
she
didn't like
played,
her.
I didn't like the character. But the lady actually in real life was very nice.
Did you ever try out for a role on 90210?
No, I never. No, I think. No, I never auditioned for that.
It's amazing because there are a lot of people born after 90210.
Yeah.
They don't understand what a thing it was.
Oh, it was a huge thing.
It was huge, really huge.
Yeah. But I think at that time, I think it was done. By the time I moved to LA, I think it was done.
Yeah.
And so she had actually moved. She was a new mom, and I remember she was really picky about. She was breastfeeding, so she had to be picky about what she ordered. And
Well, in retrospect, you can understand that.
I totally can
But
understand.
back then, it's like, oh my God, here's this high maintenance.
I'm a very high maintenance eater.
Yeah.
So like when
100%.
Harry met Sally, like I had a friend who's like, you're Sally, like everything's on the side. So I was always very forgiving about that as a
Right.
waitress,
Yeah.
which I did a
That's
lot.
very picky for a Pisces, actually.
Well, I have my moon in Virgo.
Oh, there you go. There you go. All right.
Yeah.
So you are a classically trained actress,
I am. Yes.
and you were on a career path,
Mhm.
and you had an agent and
Yep.
the whole nine. We talked about it when we this Spurs game with Axel.
Yeah.
I got some insight into your story.
Yeah.
And then you and Andy got married, and then the world changed, right? The
Yeah.
world changed.
Yeah.
So you literally, and both of you had to give up your dreams and lives. And you moved on to being a mother, which is obviously a much bigger role than
Yeah.
any role Hollywood could offer you, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I would not have thought that, but I don't know if I would say we gave up our dreams. Our dreams changed.
Your dreams changed.
They changed.
Okay, yeah. There was the same avenues or venues just weren't available.
Yeah, because when I was pregnant with Axel, I had an agent, and I was at a place in my career where I was actually going out for pretty good stuff. And my agent thought I was flaky for deciding to have a child. And so I was like, I'll be back auditioning 6 months after he's born. And then when he was born, well, let me back up. When I was pregnant, I'm a big believer in what was your name? Jay? Janet. About Axel knows. I'm big on bless yourself with your words. And I think we're energetic, vibrational beings. And when I was pregnant, that was really heightened for me. And shows that I would watch, like we were a fan of Dexter and like crime shows. And I watched them also because I know the casting directors. I want to be prepared for what style is the show. And when I was pregnant, I would be watching these things and just, I felt the energy in a different way. And it's like, I don't want to take on that energy.
Yeah.
And
Dexter's crazy energy.
yeah, and now looking back, like the whole energy, well, not the entire industry, but there's so much darkness that I didn't really, it's like I sort of floated above it and I didn't see it, but I can look back on parts that I didn't get and weird things that happened, like I didn't get a voicemail for an offer for a role on ER. It wasn't even an audition, it was an offer. And I feel like God closed the door on certain things for a reason. And at the time, it was infuriating. But like I look back on it and I think it would have changed me in not a positive way.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Axel would, like, our lives would be so different. But after he was born, I just wasn't, my whole focus changed. And it was like, why would I want to go back and do that? And I remember Molly Ringwald was a patient at a place that I used to work, and she had twins. And I remember her complaining about the show she was on at the time. And this was before I had Axel. And I thought, what is she complaining about? She's like on a hit show. And then after he was born, I was like, oh, I really understand now. Like, she wanted to be with her kids.
Right.
She didn't want to be on the set.
Right.
And so it really changed our perspective. And then, like I had mentioned to the group here, when he was about 3, and I saw a big push to take our rights away, I got really involved in that.
Right.
And then that totally changed my trajectory, because I was focused on lobbying and meeting with senators and, you know, our representatives, and that was eye-opening in a whole other direction.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You know, Molly Ringwald.
Mm-hmm.
I went back and I watched scenes from 16 Candles.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, she wasn't a very good actress. I'm sorry.
I haven't gone back. I mean, I loved her, but
I mean, the lines seemed very forced. They
Yeah.
seemed very. Look at Joan's cracking up. He's like, Robert, you're being a fucking Virgo. But Anthony Michael Hall, that's a different story. He stole that movie.
Yeah.
He was great.
Yeah.
Right, Farmer Ted. You know,
yes, I know who you're talking about.
Farmer Ted.
I know who you're talking about.
All right. So you live here in Texas now,
Yes, we made the move to Texas.
and you said today that you miss California.
I do. I love California, and the changes that I've seen in it make me sad. I'm thankful that I had the magical experience that I had there. But I'm a Pisces. I miss the beach. I miss the beach so much. I miss being able to just hop in the car and go and, you know, be there in 20 minutes.
Right.
And I miss Disneyland. I know it's woke, but we had. Okay. It was a beautiful drive. So, and then we miss friends and certain restaurants, and I don't regret that we moved, but there's that part of me that's like, I wish it could be the California that it was, but
Absolutely.
it's not. Yeah. It's not. And you talked about that on your Sunday night. I think it was on Sunday night. You were talking about California, and you were talking about your progress chart and the
Well, I was talking about my chart on top of California's state chart, and it's like, man, you know, like that's the place I should be.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know that at the time.
Yeah.
Right. Like I knew, you know, like my relocated chart in California, I understood that, but I never really sized the two up. I'm like, wow, like California's sun is right at my midheaven in my chart, and they inaugurated California in San Jose, of all places.
Yeah.
And that's where I grew up, was San Jose, California. I'm like, this is really interesting in retrospect. And I actually, when I go back there, because I'm Northern California, but when I go back there, I feel the vibe.
Yeah.
And I love the vibe.
Yeah.
It's a great vibe.
Yeah.
And, you know, we spent a lot of time in the East Bay last year, and the people in the East Bay, like Contra Costa, where Michael is hanging out, super nice people, really good people. The interesting thing that I went through with California through my mother's passing is that she went to this church, and most of the people there were liberal, like really super liberal. And it was an interesting math problem for me to solve because they were so nice to her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they loved her so much, and they were really good to her. Meanwhile, their church curriculum would like raise your eyebrows.
I remember you talking about it on the
Right?
show. Yes.
So I'm just.
And it's not, like, I had great friends, and when you're in acting, like, you go to like a networking thing, and everybody just assumes that you're liberal.
Yeah.
And I'm not. I don't subscribe to like a party, but I'm just more awake. Well, you know, I'm awake on things.
Yeah.
And I am really big on freedom. Like I have Aquarius intercepted in my first house, and I like freedom is my thing.
Yeah.
And yes, like, and that was what drew us here to Texas. Like, remember the Alamo. Like I cried. We've been to the Alamo like 3 times and done the tour, and like I feel like here is the place where we can defend our freedom.
Yeah.
So, yes, it did happen on his birthday. I didn't plan that.
So I was sharing a story with Tom a couple nights ago, and I interviewed the director Abel Ferreira. Do you know that guy? He did King of New York
Okay.
with Christopher Walken.
Okay.
His most notorious movie is Bad Lieutenant with Harvey Keitel.
Oh, I love her.
So Abel Ferreira had done this kind of vanity project for his girlfriend,
Mm-hmm.
who was younger than he was. And it's this kind of weird movie about the end of the world and climate change.
Mm-hmm.
The sun is doing weird things. And Willem Dafoe is in it. And he plays an artist, and he's her lover. And there's all this kind of existential dialogue going on between them and their relationship. Well, the world is ending with the climate change thing. Right? I'm like, the film is. But no, this was back in 2011 or 2012. It was 2012, because that was the election where Obama was running against Romney, right? So after the interview, he says, vote for Obama, right? I'm like, this is like the liberal workover I'm getting.
Yeah.
And I said, no. He's like, Romney?
It's like it's an assumption that you're going this way, and then when they find out you're not, it's like, but you're a nice person. I thought you were a nice person.
Well, it was like he couldn't understand it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
You know, and I said, well, I'm actually much more interested in Ron Paul.
But and the fascinating thing I have
He didn't know
found,
who Ron Paul was.
oh my gosh,
Right.
is when you discuss, like I would have conversations with friends when we were still in California, and not use labels, but use circumstances or issues. And they would usually agree with what I was saying. And it's like, well, you're agreeing with a more libertarian or, perspective.
Right.
But then they would be like, oh no, I can't
Right.
do that. Like, but you just did. There's a great book called The Secret Knowledge by David Mamet, the playwright. And it's brilliant. And it's about his realization that he wasn't liberal.
Yeah.
And, it's a series of essays, and I highly recommend it. It's fascinating.
So one of the first blog entries that I did on my astrology site was I was working with, I don't know what was happening in astrology at the time, but it was the movie Red Belt that David Mamet, he wrote the movie, I think he directed it. And it's not a great movie, right? But there's an interesting message in the movie. And the main actor, Chiwetel Ejiofor, who's a really good actor, gets goaded into fighting professionally.
Okay.
And Tim Allen plays this really sleek sort of manager who's sort of blackmailing him to fight professionally. And so what he does, he masters this move that gets him out of this death grip, right? But it's a very tricky move. And he does this throughout the movie. And so in competition, like this guy has him, and he executes this move to get out of it. And I thought to myself, well, there's a message in what Mamet is saying.
He
here,
always has.
right?
Yeah.
The message is that even in the most tight and intense circumstances, there's one thing that you can do to flip it or get out of it.
Yeah.
But you have to practice it in some ways.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really, that part of the movie I found really interesting.
Yeah.
His plays are
amazing.
right?
I remember seeing Oleana when I was in London, and I was studying there, and it was, talk about flipping it.
Yeah.
Because I was a young girl and skewed much more liberal just because I was young, and
But you're liberal when you're young, right?
If you don't have a heart if you're not liberal when you're young, and if you're not conservative when you're older, you don't have a brain, or something like that. But it was, you want, like as a young woman, I wanted to side with the girl, but you realize, oh, wait, she's lying. And I remember sitting there with my friend Laura, and we just sat there after the curtain, like the lights came up, and we were just like, oh.
Like you just messed with your head.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Big time. But that took me on a journey. Like I love his plays.
Didn't he do Speed the Plow? Is that
Yes.
I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, I really like this.
Yeah. He's brilliant.
What do you think the future of theater is? Do you think that there's a future, like not movies, but theater?
I am so by choice extricated from that world because I feel like people are. I feel that it's become so woke.
It's been weaponized. Let's just be.
I hope that there will be a pendulum swing and we will go back to telling stories and not telling political agendas and trying to spellcast and brainwash with
I love that spell. I love that
an
spell.
agenda. Like that's what it is, you know. And people, they're in a suggestive state. You're in a suspension of disbelief, and you are primed to be swayed.
How many people saw Hamilton?
We and Axel is the biggest history nerd. We've not seen it because I was like, I want you to understand and research who he was, and then you can see it. But I want you to understand
That version is very deep.
Yeah.
And he's not the best. Yeah.
No. Oh.
And that's the one. That's the one that they elevate, right?
I know, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Because he had, well, we could get into the allegiance to the crown, and
Right.
That's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Our family would vote for Jefferson.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to get to know you and your family, and I'm glad you moved to Texas.
Yes.
We're glad to have you here this year.
Thank you. Thanks for
Thank you
having us.
being right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. All right.
Andrea.
Yes.
All right, let's check in with the chat and see how we're doing here. Hamilton looks so woke. Yes, indeed.
Shout out to Suji G.
Lyle, I know Mamet and his whole Chicago gang, while libertarian in many ways, sadly, they're hardcore Zionists. There you go. In every silver lining, there is a Zionist. Let's see. But hey, man, Mamet is a good playwright. We can't take that away from him. All right, where are we? We got about 22 minutes left. I want to get in a few more people. You know what, Chris? We're going to get to you before we sign off here. But I wanted to bring. Is it Anaya? Anna, come on up, Anna. Why don't you come up here? She's like, what, me? There you go. Take the hair out of the bun. Okay. I love your pants.
Oh,
Those are cool. Did you get those in Miami?
I got them on eBay.
eBay. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool. How are you?
I'm doing well, and you?
Yeah, I'm great. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a pleasure.
And you came from Florida, right?
Yeah, I'm from Miami. Hmm.
And so, what brought you here? I mean, we know how like plane here, but what brought you here?
Well, my friend Lisette is a big fan of yours, and she talks wonders about you. I've seen you on YouTube for some of your podcasts and stuff like that. And I think you're an awesome astrologer.
Oh, thanks.
So she said, "Oh, come down." We hadn't met. We met in a class, but online, and we had not met physically. So this is like.
She had told me about you. She was talking about you.
Oh,
yeah. My friend in Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So you got to meet Lizette for the first time as well.
Yeah. And her husband. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Robert,
exactly.
Yeah, and their dog. They're a very big dog.
Yes, all four of them.
Oh, they have 4 now? When I was there, they only had 1.
Yeah.
They have 4 now?
Yeah, they do.
That's an army.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So what do you do in Miami?
Well, I transitioned to being an astrologer.
Oh, good for you.
Yes, about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I do have a YouTube channel as well.
Well, give it a shot. What is it?
It's my name, Anna Martha Ayala.
Okay.
and I do modern Western astrology using the degree theory by the
Okay.
late Nikola Stoyanovich.
Okay, cool.
So,
Yeah. How did you stumble upon that?
well, since I was a little kid,
Yeah.
because I'm Cuban,
Yep.
right? I was born on the island. I came when I was 3 months old, and I've always been. Walter Mercado was a very famous Puerto Rican astrologer.
Yeah.
And I remember I had readings with him in my teens.
Really?
Yeah.
In Miami?
In Miami. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
In Miami.
So how did that work? Because that was like pre-internet, right? Like sitting down with a piece of paper and like is that how it went down?
Yeah. I was shown the map, right? My natal chart.
Yeah.
And then he told me things, and I was like, wait, how did you get that? You know, like, but we would always watch him on every Sunday. He had a show on the Spanish TV program.
Right.
And then that just sparked, I have like every book I think that has been published of astrology.
Yeah.
And then now you start developing, start reading, you start learning.
Yeah.
And because I went everywhere, like Babylonian astrology, Hellenistic, modern Western astrology. I tried Vedic, but that doesn't.
Yeah.
No.
I don't sync up with it.
Yeah, me neither. But then I found Nikola Stoyanovich on Astrolaga's channel.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I had a reading with him, and he completely blew my mind.
Cool.
Because he was so specific.
Yeah.
And so, I said, okay, let me learn the method.
The method.
Yes, the method.
I used to be connected with Lotta.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would do like webinars for her. I think she's great.
Yeah,
she's
I mean,
great.
she's an awesome
Yeah.
person, and I think she helped on YouTube, like bring the astrology community together. Like she presented a lot of stuff. So yeah. So that's how I left my accounting world, because I'm actually a certified public accountant.
Right.
I'm still licensed in Florida.
Yeah.
But I left that world behind.
Yeah.
'Cause I have a Capricorn sun in the 10th house, right? So when I had that
Oh
Saturn,
wow! Look at you.
Pluto and Jupiter conjunction, that was like,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I lived through it, right? So we're good.
Yeah. Wow. That's actually a great placement, especially for sort of midlife and on, where like you just get stronger in the 10th house.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're just getting cooking.
From your mouth to God's ears, right?
Yeah. Hey, I used to watch this show. Maybe I don't know if you know the show. It was on like Telemundo or Univision. Do you know those channels?
See, Univision.
Univision, right?
Yeah.
So it's this show called like 12 Horas or something like that. It was like this dating show, but with this astrology.
I saw it. My parents were watching it.
Right? Like I couldn't figure. I'm not. I don't speak. I couldn't figure it out. Like what would they do? There were things that they were using signs and everything, but I couldn't figure it out. Like what was going on? Did you watch it? Like understand it at all?
No, I didn't watch it because I don't watch the Spanish channel.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I speak both languages.
Right.
I read, I write them, I speak English and Spanish.
Yeah.
But I grew up here. This is the United States is my country. That's who I associate with. I'm very proud of my Cuban heritage.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but I don't watch the Spanish news, or I only got to watch those programs because my parents were watching it. So, what choice did I?
Yeah, I used to have this neighbor who was originally from Mexico and had to move to the United States. And I would go over to. He was much older than me. Well, not a little bit older than me. It was him and his wife and his kids and grandkids all in the same place. So I would go over to his house and I'd hang out with him and we'd drink beer. And that show was on whenever I would go over there. Oh, it's this astrology show.
Yeah, they would use some kind of matching system and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And then they would go out on a date, and then they would come back and report.
So that's how it worked.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then they would come back and report and see how it went. Sometimes, they hit it off, and sometimes they didn't, obviously.
Wow, that sounds like an idea for a show. I like that. Okay, well, you're here, and how's it feel?
Well, it feels great. It's a wonderful. I would encourage people to come to your event on the Harvest Moon thing every year. It's very nice, and I like I said earlier, I do find that Texas is very welcoming. At least the people here are very friendly and very helpful, which is refreshing.
Yeah. When my mother was here, the Texans loved her, right? They couldn't do enough for her. Wasn't that right? Yeah. So, yeah, I think there's a lot to that. You said something earlier that I wanted to go back to. And it was about your identifying with this country and that you are here and this is your place and you are proud of it, love the country, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
That's beautiful, right? That's a sentiment that not enough people have.
Agreed.
And I can get very cynical and I can go down into some dark places. But at the end of the day, right, it's still a lot better than a lot of these other places.
That's because people, and no offense to anybody or any people, don't know what communism really is.
Yeah.
Right. So my family exited Cuba because my grandfather was gonna be, gonna end up in jail because it sounds really nice. Everybody's equal. Everything is wonderful. But the reality is completely different.
Yeah.
Right? So then, and I was raised here. I came when I was a baby, 3 months old. Right? So it's very, I would fight for this country. But on this territory, I wouldn't fight in the Middle East. I wouldn't fight. That's not my problem.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And I know that people, because like I said, I'm from Miami. I hear we have a lot of immigration over there from all over Central and South America, and they hate the United States. And I would tell, why do you hate it? If you hate it so much, go back.
Right.
Right? But when you're here, you do as the Americans do. Right?
What do they hate about the country?
Well, because, you have to struggle. You actually have to work.
Yeah.
You actually have to work. Yeah. It's not like you can take a siesta in the middle of the day and then, and I'm talking about like specifically the Cubans that have entered the country recently.
Yeah.
They think that it's easy peasy, right? I mean, it took us 50-something years, right, to get where we're at.
Yeah.
And I'm not wealthy by any stretch of the imagination, right? I'm not a millionaire or anything like that. But I have my house, My kids went to the University of Miami. They graduated from there. My daughter graduated from Cornell Vet School.
Yeah.
So my son has 2 degrees in computer animation. So, but it takes work and it takes a lot of dedication and stuff like that. And they think that coming over, in a couple of months, you'll be just like, just like the average American. And it's like, no.
Well, I think what's happened is that the cell phone has done an extreme disservice to this assimilation process because you're getting people with cell phones now, they're ubiquitous, and they're seeing like opulence or they're seeing their version of wealth, and they're like, man, I really like this, right? And I want to get there, and I want to be at that level immediately.
Exactly.
Right. And so what was weird is that America existed more in the realm of imagination for people that weren't here. Right. They would hear about it. They would hear these stories. Every now and then they'd see a Humphrey Bogart movie or something like that. Right. And so they would develop this idea about what this place could be. Right? And for those who were willing to take that journey and get here, they didn't really have any preconceived kind of notions about, stepping onto, streets with bricks of gold and, getting like high quality TVs and cars and, performance. I mean, it was a very different America. It existed more in the person's imagination, perception, right? And getting into this country was more difficult. You had to learn about how to, what was this place about? What are you going to be doing here? And so by the time you went through that process, you were on your way to really becoming an American. And everything has just gotten completely transmogrified and metastasized. So that idea, right, that there's this place of America that's existing in the imagination isn't really that anymore. It's like a commodity. It's a commodity at a high level that people just want to, and they know now that the government will support them. This government will support them to get there faster than your parents who came here when you did and then put in all that work. That's the dirty little secret in the immigration underground now, right? Because the system is now supporting some of those things.
Well, when we came, my aunt and my uncle, the two youngest, came through the Peter Pan thing, right? So my grandparents got them out first, and then they filed for us to come over. My grandparents, my mom, my dad, and myself. Right? But when we got here, I think we got here like on a Thursday or something like that. My dad was working Saturday at the port of Miami, offloading trucks. We didn't get any help.
Right.
We didn't get any assistance. We were here because it was only temporary, right? So when the revolution, it was supposed to be over because, Fidel Castro was only going to be there for a few years, right? Yeah. Right. And then what? Since we got here in 1966, right? So it didn't turn out to be temporary.
Yeah.
Because my dad left all his family over there. His parents and his 8 siblings, okay? So, and it was like, okay, we'll see you in a couple of years.
So what prompted him to do that? Did he understand where the country was going? Like, did he understand that communism was about to, become a vice grip on people's lives? What prompted him to leave?
Me.
You.
Me, because he had a 3-month-old baby.
Yeah.
And he didn't know if he was going to have food to feed me. Because my dad was a farmer in Cuba, right?
Yeah.
Like his family owned maybe about 7 or 8 acres, right? And he had all kinds of vegetables and stuff like that because I was going to be born, right? But then when things started to when the fold or the
blindfold?
Yeah, it comes down and you say, wait. You mean you're going to give me a little piece of paper that says I'm only entitled to 5 pounds of rice a month, half a pound of meat a week, X number of pounds of beans or whatever. And then if they find you on the street with red meat and you're not with that book, you go to jail for buying food on the black market, right?
Yeah, wow.
So then he's like, no, my daughter's not going to live through this. And then I was the reason.
So you're the catalyst.
I'm the catalyst, yes.
It's an amazing story.
Yep. I think so.
We're glad you're here.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
We're glad you're here.
Thank you so much.
Aren't these amazing stories? Oh my God, blown away. How much time we have left? We're
Good.
okay. Well, why don't we do this? Chris, you want to come up here for a little bit? This is our guy, Mr. True Hemp Science.
How you doing?
Our guy, Chris. Here we are again.
Yeah.
Have you been up here before?
I don't think I've been up here. I try to stay away.
Yeah. Well, I guess he got caught.
Yeah. Well, you know what I love about what you've done, and I remember in like 2015, I love how you built the community. I really feel it. I really feel how it's, well, especially nowadays, I think people don't realize how difficult it is to build something. But it's very easy to destroy something or to criticize something.
Right. Yeah.
And so, anyway, I just, I talked to these people, and many of these people have ordered from us, and I am grateful for that. But just the hearing people, and it's just great to meet guys. Yeah, I mean, they're awesome, the best people. I got to say, you have the best people. Yeah. Thanks.
I agree. So, give yourself a round of applause. So, looking back on my connection with you, what was it, 2012, 2013?
Yeah. I just moved because I was going back and forth to Oregon, and then I found you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we met at Central Market, right?
Yep, yep. You did a reading for me.
Yeah.
And then I got, yeah, because I heard you talking on, I don't think it was Regina's. I think you were talking on, maybe it was your podcast, or you were talking on some podcast. And I was like, oh, this guy's pretty dialed in, because I haven't had an astrologer in a while who was hip and that kind of understood stuff. And so, and that's when I contacted you, and I just stayed in contact. You did the astrology for True Hemp.
Yeah.
Twice at least.
Yeah.
You've done the astrology for a couple of my other businesses, and then, yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when I first met you. You've changed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. When I first met you, you were very like jumpy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
You were. I'm like, man, this guy's nervous.
Yeah.
But I liked you. I liked you.
That's probably the CBD.
Yeah, it's probably the CBD. Yeah, but I liked you.
Well, metal toxicity will kind of mess up your nervous system.
Yeah, but I liked you.
Yeah, thank you.
And I thought, yeah, he's a serious character.
Yeah.
So CBD is, let's talk about CBD. It has literally changed your life, right?
Absolutely. I have a booming business. I have a retail store in Austin, getting one in San Marcos, but mainly we just I've watched it transform people, like whether transition off cannabis or transition off pharmaceuticals, or just in general, it just helps the body.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't say enough positive things about it. I found it's non-addictive. I found that, if you take too much, you'll just stop taking it.
Yeah.
So, it's just the side effect of taking it. And I gave somebody who'd come over. I met this woman who had 2 kids, and she had just come over here, and she's an immigrant. And, and she was drinking, and I gave her a couple of bottles, and she called me a couple of weeks ago, and she was like, I don't even drink anymore. It's the side effect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing wrong with drinking, but I'm just saying,
Right.
The side effect is it puts you more in your body, helps restore your mind-body connection so that you can be more present for your life.
Right. Yeah. So one of the things that I talk about when I mention you on the show each day is the fact that, number one, your stuff is organically sourced, but you're also this mad scientist.
Yeah, you guys get some of this stuff.
And you do things that, there's some crossover with other people that do CBD products, but you do things that are very unique with your products. And I try to convey that to people. And you're like a guy in the lab. You're always in the lab, right?
Yep, it's part of the dilemma is because I'm not like a super marketer, and we do a lot of events for sales, but I've been into nutrition and how nutrition or natural components can alter your consciousness, and not necessarily just psychedelic or stuff like that.
Right.
But and so I also have been very fortunate because I started doing this in Northern California in the late 90s, and still knew a lot of people in farms or that were working at processing facilities that I got access to, very, very, and I have a couple of friends who are they're like me, but they just grow the best stuff, and no chemicals. And I think that it's so true that the consciousness of the person who grows the cannabis, that goes into the cannabis. And people are like, yeah, no. If you take 2 of the same stuff and put it side by side, it's totally different. Yeah,
very different. So I remember when you first started to get going, you would send me stuff in the mail.
Yeah.
Right? And you would send me these straws.
Oh, yeah, the tubes.
Yeah, tubes, heavy terpenes.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you would tell me, hey, go easy.
Right, yeah.
And I'm like, there was this one night where like, I'm going to have a couple of these.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I got to tell you, man, I went
electric.
I went somewhere.
Yeah.
The weirdest thing is I started to listen to Jeff Rentz interview Catherine Austin Fitz.
Oh, wow. Oh, that'd be good.
So here I am, like on this like very buzzy CBD thing, and I'm into the mind of Catherine Austin Fitz.
Oh, yeah.
And I've got headphones on and everything.
Oh, classic.
Yeah, man.
Nice.
I kind of got an insight into Catherine Austin Fitz. It was, I don't want to have it again.
Right.
Right. No, she's a good person. Don't get me wrong. It does good work, but it was too. I felt like an interloper in her mind for.
Oh yeah,
It was.
I can remember the first time because I wasn't really using cannabis, or we weren't really. I had done it up until like 2006, 8, and then stopped. And then I got, the story is one of my friends got sick, and I got a bunch of it to give him because I had a transmission. I went to see him, and CBD flashed in the hospital.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it was somebody else. Some higher intelligence.
Wow.
And and I had stayed up and I would make those straws all night long, and I would do everything, like the labels, all of it. I just sit there and go. And I did like 3 of them, and you were just like, oh man, this is like really interesting.
Yeah, I was in that zone, man.
Yeah, it's almost like you're tripping, but not really.
Right.
But you have much more control.
Yeah.
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 I would recommend CBD.
Yeah. Well, hey, so 15MINS.
Yeah.
That's your code.
Yeah. Oh, and yes, I so appreciate everybody supporting us. We try to give, especially Robert's fans or Robert's, people in the club, a little something. We've got, little things that we're known for is raw cannabinoids. We also do the single cannabinoids like CBG or blends of stuff that are very functional. We're about high functionality, high CBD, low THC remedies.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, thanks for being here.
Yeah,
man.
I super appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah. All right, let's get 2 more. Don't sit down. You're coming up here. She's getting serious. Off comes the hoodie. Okay, so it is none other than Barbara in her boots. How you doing, Barbara?
Okay, how are you?
I'm good. Yeah, so how's it feel to be here amongst the rest of the folks?
It's really interesting because you usually don't find such a large collection of people who have a similar orientation.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you have to, when you talk about these topics, you have to kind of be careful how you introduce it, just sort of test the waters.
Yeah, how do you test the waters with certain people? You have a technique?
Not particularly. I kind of maybe zone in on the person and try a little sort of thing to see, what they say, and then kind of pursue it from there.
Right.
But if you get something else, then you just say, okay, that's your choice, it's not mine.
Right.
But basically I stay quiet about the stuff most of the time.
Yeah.
But if you get with a person who really pretty much thinks the same way, they really go into it.
Yeah.
Right, so.
Right. So I wanted to bring you up here because you're actually a very interesting person. You served in the diplomatic corps, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And you kind of got into that a little bit later in life too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about that a little bit.
Okay. Well, I'm one of these hated baby boomers. And back then, as a girl, you really didn't have a lot of choices in terms of what you were going to do. I mean, I remember thinking, well, after you finish college and stuff, what's next? Do I really want to work? Usually people get married and so on and so forth. But yeah, what I did is in spring '69, I went on World Campus Afloat, which was a student experience where you go around the world. I think we visited 15 or 20 countries. And that was where I met the man who became my husband 7 months later. And our motto back then was travel first and settle down later. And so, we were not finished with school yet. So he transferred to Ohio State where I was going at the time. And we finished up. And then 3 weeks before graduation, our daughter was born. And at that point, originally we were thinking about doing preschool or something. But then he said, well, that's not really practical with a baby. So he became a Fulbright student in Germany, and that's when I learned the language, because he had been over there as a high school exchange student. I mean, it just kind of went from there. And when we finished up that year, we're like, we're not ready to go home yet. So, you know, what else can we do? We signed up with German development assistance, and by that time I was pregnant with our son. And so we got sent to the Gambia in West Africa. And, you know, our son was born in Banjul, so he's a Banjul boy. And, you know, we did that for about 1.5 years. And then we went home, and my husband was like, well, we got to get serious about something here. So he contacted his old advisor at Ohio State, who said, oh, you know, the Foreign Agriculture Service was coming by looking for recruits. And that's what he ended up doing. So that meant we moved to Washington area, Washington, D.C. And, you know, about 3 years later, then we got the assignment to go to the Soviet Union. And that kind of started the whole thing, because, you know, we're working now in an embassy situation. I was learning Russian. I was doing dance classes in Russian, music lessons in Russian, playing broomball, things like that. And then we were assigned to East Berlin, which is another communist country. I heard them talking
So
about.
essentially what you're saying is you were a spy. No.
No, I was just kind of grooving on
No,
life.
I'm just not, come on.
I'm
That's-
grooving on
that's-
life, yeah. No, I mean, but you know, when you're talking about, I forget her name, from Cuba, you know, it's anybody who's lived over there under that system knows what that's all about. And of course, I mean, in well, the Soviet Union at that time, I mean, these guys, they break kneecaps for fun. You know, it was not pleasant. Even as a diplomat, you had the diplomatic protection and so forth. Anyway, moving on. You did 4 years in Berlin. That really cemented the German. We went back to the States, and then my was assigned to Taiwan. So then we had to learn Chinese, and we lived like he had the assignment for 4 years. Our son graduated out of Taipei American School. By this time, our daughter was in college, and he was like, well, you know, I know you really need to do something. And by this time, I kind of knew what that system was. And so at the time, I was working as what they call the community liaison officer in the American Institute in Taiwan. And there were a lot of spouses who were doing other jobs because it's not a standard embassy. So somebody said, well, you know, I'm tired of being a second-class citizen. I'm taking the Foreign Service exam. I said, okay, Cheryl, if you take it, I'll take it too. Well, I passed and she didn't. You know, it was not really it. It was so accidental in so many ways. But long story short, I finally did get in. And first assignment was Frankfurt. Again, I had the German. And then because my ex was assigned to The Hague in the Netherlands, my follow-on assignment was in Amsterdam. And then he retired and I kept going.
So would you work at the embassies? Is that where you would work? Or?
Well, actually, the only embassy I ever worked at was in Baghdad.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, everything else was consulate. You know?
So were you there when what's his name was running the show?
Which,
in Iraq, right?
oh, there's a Bush, yes. Yes, I was in the Oval Office 3 times. When they have something called credentialing. So when a foreign ambassador comes in to present his country's credentials, and you do kind of exchange things, it's always with the head of state, which in that case was George W. Bush. So at that time, I was working in Washington. I was the desk officer, is what they call it, the desk officer for Tanzania and Uganda at that point. So those ambassadors came in, and you're part of the ceremony. And then finally ended up desk officer for the UK. And that ambassador changed, and it was really quite interesting to see. I mean, I liked Bush. I'm sorry, you know, I really.
This is Bush 1?
No, Bush 2.
Bush 2.
Bush 43, we called him.
Well, he's a Cancer like you.
Yep.
And his son is in the 12th house like yours. No wonder you like the guy.
Yeah.
Did you? What about Saddam Hussein? Did you like have any interaction with that government before they started tearing it apart?
After the fact.
After that.
I mean, my first assignment in Iraq was to the provincial reconstruction team in Tikrit, And so, it was the province of Salahadin, and sometimes, and we kind of went all over the province, and I was embedded with the military. It was this huge 16 square kilometer military base just outside of Tikrit, and we'd do our meetings with the provincial council. The MREPs would take us in, and we'd have body armor on and everything. But I loved working with the Iraqis, I really did. But from time to time there would be excursions out to Saddam's palaces, and it was like unbelievable in the sense of these huge monstrosities of things that he was putting money in from the Oil for Food program while his country was starving. It was, it was so surreal, really. But at the same time, there's
But they had so many sanctions on them too, though, didn't they?
Well, they did.
Yeah.
That was in the 90s.
It was all the way through to the end.
Yeah, and really.
So it wasn't like we were making it easy.
No.
On the Iraqis.
Not at all.
Right.
Not at all. And they're really fine people. And everybody gets things in their head that they do silly things. But no, it was, I really enjoyed that. I think part of it was, we're in the provincial reconstruction team. We had a lawyer there was working on rule of law issues. We had, a couple guys doing the economic piece. I was the governance chief, so I was talking about, and that was the ironic thing, because one thing about, I used to say, because we worked closely with the military, was, we come from a high trust society. Now I look at it, sometimes I have to stop and think, because I was like, it's not perfect, but the main thing about that is you need to have strong institutions for that to work, so that, if you go into a court, you can expect to get a balanced result. But also you need to have an idea of what you're aiming at, what you want. And that's what I would tell them. And I said, it isn't, we can't impose American style democracy on this place. You have to have some idea of what makes sense for your culture, your language, your history, and your experience. But the main principles are basically self-determination and the freedom of speech. Where the press reflects the news and not some kind of propaganda. Look at us. But they were very receptive. They were like sponges because they've been really isolated for a long time, the Iraqis. And when they would finally start to travel like to the Emirates and into the Gulf states, they were like really shocked because they'd always been told the Iraqis were superior, et cetera, et cetera. And even in Jordan, which they regard as a bunch of goat herds, it have much more sophisticated systems in place for tracking budgets, very practical things on how do you govern. And so we were doing a lot of programs to try to educate them and these sorts of things. I mean, again, do with it what you will, but some of the first things we were doing was teaching them how to do spreadsheets so they could track budgets, because up to that point it was all done by hand. It could be changed by somebody. And the second issue that we found in Salahadin was that Baghdad had passed a new law devolving a number of these things to the provinces, and the provinces had no experience doing this. Contracting was a big issue. I mean, I got complaints all the time about, they sign these contracts for building XYZ, and the contractors would sell it off to somebody else, and then nothing would ever get done. So they have material laying about and nothing was happening. The other thing I told them is it's really important to do something about your banking system, because if you want to do international business, you've got to have a solid banking system where things flow in and out, and you can't. They were too much into control, and they didn't really understand, or they were trying to understand. And seeing some of the results in their neighboring countries like Jordan. Jordan has a budget that's completely automated, and so everybody can see everything. And it's like, we want that, So
you were basically getting them up to speed in the 20th century.
Yeah, pretty much. And again, the other thing I would say about the Iraqis is not Arabs. They are a different. They're much more pragmatic than many of the other places in the Middle East. And so they were, once the shackles were kind of off, then they were ready to take on sort of new ideas, try new things, because they wanted to be successful. I mean, they're very ambitious. They were highly educated. The other thing about Iraq was, for a long time, they were a Soviet client state, and so women were educated.
Right, that was the thing about the Ba'ath Party. Like
Yeah.
Saddam, it was more kind of quasi-socialist in some ways.
Yeah, it was.
So it wasn't very Arabic in that regard.
No, it wasn't.
Okay, I want to talk about something really important.
Okay.
I want to talk about your dog.
All right.
All right, so tell people about Inky, and tell people why I love Inky so much.
Because he's an Aquarian dog. I'm seeing this so much. Anyway, we've been in. This is what this shirt is about. It says here, Agility 22. I've been in Bernese Mountain Dogs since 1985, and I've had, oh gosh, probably 15, 16 burners over that span, because they don't really live that long. The average lifespan is like 7 years. But in 2022, we had our national specialty in Hampton Roads, Virginia. And so that's fairly accessible for me. So I took, did I take 3 dogs with me? 2 dogs? I forget. But anyway, my other girl who I lost last year was really, I mean, she won up at Westminster. She could do agility. We did drafting.
She's like top bitch, right?
Yeah. Yeah, she was in the Bernese Mountain Dog. Yeah.
Right.
So versatility.
Right.
Bitch.
Right.
Top versatility.
Top versatility bitch.
Yes. Yeah.
That's even better.
Well, versatility.
That's well-rounded.
Well, yeah, that's it. I mean, the versatility thing is in any breed, really.
Sadly, she's passed away.
Last year.
And I know that was for her.
Yeah, it was, because you did a reading for me right after that. But no, I mean, versatility in any breed means you basically.
I want to talk about Inky.
Yeah,
Let's
I know.
talk about
I'm going to get this first.
Okay.
Versatility means you got to have an AKC championship. You got to have a draft title, which is pulling the cart, and you got to have one other working title. Like, could be herding, can be tracking, can be obedience, can be agility. So that's what the versatility designation means, and that's what I'm trying to work on with Mr. Enki, because he's got his grand championship. But he's an Aquarian dog, as Robert so kindly pointed out to me, which means, he's brilliant, but he does what he wants to do when he wants to do it.
I haven't met this dog, but I love it.
He's very affectionate.
Tell the story about when he saw the pictures of the dogs on the wall. He's like doing this routine, right? And he sees these paintings of these dogs, and he breaks the routine and he goes over to the dogs, right? That aren't even there. They're just paintings, right?
Yes. I mean, when I work with him, this was a rally class, and rally obedience is a bunch of obedience exercises where you can talk to the dog, and you go through the signs, and there's a sort of a pathway. So you walk the course to make sure you know what you're doing. So I'm walking in here, I'm having him, lie down and stand up, to back up, whatever, we're just to warm him up, As soon as we get into the ring, he's already looking around like, I haven't been in here before, and then I get to the first sign, which was, a certain thing, and he was not doing it, so I had to catch up. So that was already, minus 10 points. The second sign was a clover leaf thing, and I'm trying to get him to kind of start going around the cones and everything, and that's when he spotted the silhouettes on the back wall, and he was like, dogs playing, and he goes running over there, and he's looking at it, ready to engage, and nothing's happening. And he goes to the other end, and he says, nothing's happening. He's looking back like, what the hell?
Meanwhile, there's a competition going on,
I was like, Enki, get over here. I still could have done something, but he would not listen to me.
So there are people in the stands, right? Judges, right?
Well, no. There's one judge in the ring, and it was a room, because it's where they train. And in the middle section were all the dogs that were being crated, because in the other far end was the ring for obedience. And when he wasn't getting any traction from these silhouettes on the wall, he's like, hey, there are dogs over here in this crated section. He's like, no, we're not doing that, because he's already run out of the ring for that.
And so you had to reel him in, right?
Yeah, I finally had come, and he was like, not having it, but I grabbed his collar and said that was it. I mean, that's an entry fee wasted. That's, it's like,
I think Yankee's your teacher.
that's what you said.
He's your spiritual teacher.
But
And you have the nicest, kindest son-in-law.
yeah.
He's such a universal lover, isn't he?
Yes.
Do you want to tell people how proud of your son-in-law, who your son-in-law is?
Maybe some of you know the Sane Asylum and the Perfect Triangle. These are shows that are on, right now they're on FTJ Media. They have been on, I think, Rising Tide and Speak Free. My son-in-law is Giuseppe. Perhaps you know him.
The G-Man. Shout out to the G-Man.
The G-Man, yes. And that was how I found out about Robert, because I would, if you've watched my son-in-law's shows, he's very...
He's very fair. He's very fair and
He's
balanced guy. He's fair and balanced, right?
Yeah, sort of. He's also a flamethrower.
He's a flamethrower.
He's a flamethrower. And then so Robert gets on his show, and Robert is always very like, okay, but there's this side and there's this angle. And I'm like, I kind of like this, because there are these other different angles.
By the way, I don't disagree with just either.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
No, it's just that you have a different style and tone.
Right.
So, but I mean, I particularly remember the thing where you're talking about the guy who created kind of the equivalent of a paddle wheel to go across the Atlantic.
Yeah, right.
It's and when it didn't work and he got arrested or taken by the Coast Guard, it was like, back to the drawing board. Let's try something else.
And everyone would be better than the next.
Yeah. So I was like, that's really kind of outside the box thinking.
Right. Yeah.
So it's it's been really interesting. So
Well, next year you have to bring Yankee.
bringing Anki on the plane unless I drive.
Yeah, there you go. Well, thanks for coming up here and sharing your story. A very rich and varied life. I know there's a lot more that you've done, but you've given us a pretty concise and in-depth, view of like a trajectory of your life.
Yeah, kind of, I guess,
In as much time as we could do that.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, sure.
And, thank you for what you do. I think you've got some very unique insights on stuff.
Well, I get a lot of inspiration from these people.
Yeah, well, that's how it's supposed to work, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's like what's a pinball machine where it kind of bounces off
That's
things
right.
and then things happen.
We're just a bunch of pinballs and bumpers in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
As a manner of speaking.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming up.
Oh,
all right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay, we got time for one more, and I would be remiss if Miss Joan didn't come up here. There she is, the lovely. All right, here we are.
Hey, everyone.
So you've been up here before, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. When was last? And this is how many times have we done this now?
6.
See, I said we. Did you like that?
Yes.
So, just to let you know, if you don't already understand, Joan is an amazing person, and I have a long history of infidelity, and Joan has cured me. Sorry, it's true. It's true. You meet somebody like who's like this cool, and like you don't want to fuck it up, right? So I want to thank you for that, Joan. You've cured me of my infidelity. I think I might have said that before in some other ways, offline, right?
I guess so.
Yeah. So Joan has changed so much since I first met her. You have a lot. You've changed a lot.
I have.
Yeah, because you've had to go through this every year, and you become a bit more a public person, and you have a bit more of a sort of a time where you get to do this, and you're around me, right? So like you're going to change through that process. You've changed.
Okay.
You've opened. Not that you weren't open, when I first met you. You were sort of open, sort of
Well, you
open.
may be talking to city council.
Yeah. So
I was doing it already.
yeah. So how I met Joan. This is an interesting. People probably don't know this.
I was your client.
You were my client first. Joan was my client, and I remember doing this reading for Joan, and I'm like, oh, she's kind of hot. And I'm like, okay, I got to keep it together here and just, give her a reading, right? And so, but unfortunately, I saw things in her reading that I could not deny or hold back, right? So what did I say?
You can have issues with your marriage.
That's right.
In a few years.
It was true. And apparently I became the issue. Now, I didn't plan on it that way. I was not being manipulative, but it sort of happened, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where we started. Me being a homewrecker. But no, not really. So the thing that connected Joan and I was we were trying to get fluoride out of the city of Fredericksburg's water supply. And I guess the pump was down.
Yeah.
Right. And so there was this kind of moment, this window where we could get in with the city council and the mayor to convince them, don't do this, right?
Please.
So I hooked up with some local people who were very passionate about it, Jeanette being one of them. And I thought we need to bring, because I knew about Joan,
I was watching your show and you in the chat said I need to talk to you.
Right. So, but I knew that she had credentials with the whole holistic dentistry and anti-fluoride stuff. I'm like, we got to get Joan Fredericksburg to talk in front of these people. So you came and you brought Neil with you.
Mm-hmm.
And Neil was amazing.
That's
He's like an engineer, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
This guy just laid down the science hardcore in front of the city council. And so we all came, there was anybody opposed to us. And then they basically said, screw you, we're going to hook it back up again. And that's when we went on the offensive. So what we did is Fredericksburg is what they call a home rule city. So you can petition to put a charter amendment as part of the ballot item. And we did that. We went out and we got a bunch of signatures. So they were all legit, right? So we got it on the ballot. And we had, about 5 months or 6 months, I think, to get a campaign together. So we worked on that intensely, on that campaign. And it was it was kind of an amazing experience, but it was also really, really frustrating because we were up against, it's so weird, even in a small city, you find these concentrations of power at a very, fundamental level, like the local newspaper.
Mm.
And the local newspaper was not on our side, just not on our side. The newspaper publisher's wife did a big op-ed about why fluoride was so good and the benefits of fluoride, right? So Joan decided there was a dentist too that also wrote an op-ed.
No, they wouldn't let us.
No, hold on their side, there was a dentist, right? So Joan decided to write a letter to the editor, but a long one.
They wouldn't let me.
So they wouldn't let her because she didn't live in Fredericksburg. So these are the levers of power, right? So what we had to do is Joan, you actually purchased a full page ad for this letter stating everything as to why fluoride was a bad deal.
And I called the dentist, I compared him to physicians in the 50s who recommended cigarettes.
And these dentists were so freaked out by us. They mobilized hardcore. They started these rumors like, these are these people from Austin and they have all this money behind them. And we were just like 4 or 5 people who were intensely committed to this process. But that's how they viewed us and they all bonded together. All these dentists bonded together. So when it came time for the vote, unfortunately, we didn't fare very well.
I think they cheated.
Well, and they may have, but I was so so distracted with that vote because, excuse me, I thought people just want their slavery, right? We're offering you an opportunity to take a chemical out of your water. This is something that is being done to you without your consent. And we've stated the case as to why this is so dangerous, and yet you still want to support it. It was really a little disheartening, right? I had to get over that. I really had to get over that. But there was good news. So one of the things that we did, there was, what was that parade?
It was Founding Fathers Parade?
I think it's like the Founding Fathers Parade. It's a big,
Fredericksburg?
in Fredericksburg. It's a big parade. So we thought this is a good opportunity for us to enter a float in the parade and tell people about the dangers of fluoride, right? So because we want to get this thing passed. So we worked on this float, right? And
All night.
all night we work on this float because we had this idea of using balloons for waves. And on one side, and I'm like, we did about how many balloons? 5 or 6? I'm like, no. So then we went to Walmart. We bought a bunch of paint supplies, and we did this thing. Like we went hardcore on this thing, and we have like Mylar dolphins and balloons, right?
And Patrick.
What's that?
Patrick.
Oh,
dressed
Patrick.
up as a
Oh,
water
we had one of our guys was like a water drop, like he had a water drop suit. He was, in the back wait. So we're in staging, right? And this woman walks up. We had a bubble machine. This woman walks up to me and she gives me this ribbon. I'm like, what's this? She goes, oh, you got 3rd place. for what? Like best independent float or something like that. So we might have lost the election, but we got 3rd place in that parade. That was important, right?
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, it was good. Anyway, so here we are, 5 years, like, when was that? It was 20, it was 2019, 2020, right?
Yeah,
2019. Wow. Here we are. Well, are you feeling good?
Yeah.
Feel good about this event
Yeah,
this year?
great.
Great group, right?
Yeah, great group.
By the way, Joan was Miss Smile San Antonio in 1979. Can you tell?
I missed anything. She's so gorgeous.
So, all right. So I came up with this idea. I'm going to tell you the idea. All right.
Okay.
All right.
It's
So
your idea.
it's my idea. All right. So I'm very realistic about my presence on YouTube. Like I have a ceiling, right? I'm white, male, probably a little too like, I don't know, conservative, libertarian, whatever. So I got a ceiling. Like, man, how could I break through that ceiling? How could I get a lot of views? Because I get obsessed. Like, what can I create that's not me that would get a lot of views? And I'm like, Joan. So I had this idea that I really wanted to like move away from the dentist thing. It's a little hard on your body.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, I think she should have a YouTube channel. And because she's very into health, right? Like health. And I'm like, how about this? Give me your feedback on this, right? Timeless health and beauty with Joan, Dr. Joan. What do you think of that? Does that sound good? So I'm going to retire from being an astrologer, and you're going to be my cash cow.
Okay.
We're going to ride this. No, seriously, I think that could be very successful. I think the algorithms could be, as long as you don't get too political. You'd have to keep some of the politicals, like.
Don't look in my car.
Right. Okay. Because we want a big, wide, broad audience. Give us lots of money. No, I'm just kidding. But I think that would be a great idea, don't you think? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. The secret's out.
Okay.
What do you think about it? You just have to
You're
do
the
it.
coach.
You just have to do what I say.
Yeah, You're the man.
No.
All right, let's check out the chat, and then I think we're out of here. Let's see what we got here. We're all crushing on Joan. What else we got? Lynn, I remember when all this was happening. That is how they portrayed you guys, to slander. Yes, most people want their own slavery. Let's highlight that for Christine. All these chemicals are a slow kill, absolutely. Now that, hey, the bag is out on fluoride, right? Like, you guys heard that this is huge. This is really huge. So I'm not so despondent now. Okay, I think that's it. We're gonna bring it to a close here. So everybody watching, thank you very much. And I know it sounds really cliche, but our hearts and prayers do go out to our friends in North Carolina and in Tennessee and Virginia and wherever else this catastrophe has struck. And not just the catastrophe, but the response. I know if many of us, if we could be there and we could perform a functional role right now, we would. So hang in there, do the best you can, and God bless all of you. And it will get better at some point. Trust me. And it might get worse again after that. I'm just kidding. All right, take good care, and we'll see you guys hopefully tomorrow on the virtual stream. Okay, bye for now.